Greetings from the new Simply Hearing. Like everyone, we've made a lot of changes. We've always loved telling you about the teamwork and rapport that you find here, but now, for the sake of medical safety, we offer 4 types of services by appointment only. There's lots to be happy about with a new, more precise appointment plan made just for your needs. We also have a new, more transparent pricing structure. Start your path for better hearing and better life.
Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Hi, I'm Bob from Crane Appliance. Since 1983, as a family-owned company, our goal has been simple: to give our neighbors of the Cape and Islands a great shopping experience. Rest easy knowing our professional team will listen to your needs and help you pick out the perfect appliances. We'll take care of everything throughout the sale, delivery, and installation process. And we even have our own in-house service department. Crane Appliance, we call the Cape and Islands home.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.
Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by MegaNet Communications. MegaNet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server co-location, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their number one goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.
Take a break and go to executive session. And I declare as chair that to not go into executive session would jeopardize the town's position with regard to a settlement, employee settlement. So is...
I second.
Okay. Any, all in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
That's unanimous. And we'll be back by 7 or shortly thereafter. Thank you. Call the July 12th Select Board regular meeting to order, and I hope you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And proclamation, Falmouth Historical Society. Would anyone like to read that?
I guess I can. It's virtually the same for all the people that they're recognizing.
That's true.
So maybe what we can do is announce the names, and then read the
That sounds like a
the
good idea.
proclamation, and then we don't have to repeat it six times, 5 times, yeah. So,
Great.
Anyway, so. So you want to?
Maybe, should we just start by just saying that the Falmouth Historical Society will host its 21st Annual Heritage Award, and this is on September 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m. And this is an award to honor an individual or a group that has made a positive impact upon Falmouth and the region. Obviously, the event wasn't able to be held in 2020 because of COVID, and this year's focus in particular was on women who have influenced various segments of Falmouth's community. And the 5 recipients, maybe I'll just read them and then you can read the proclamation.
Sure.
5 recipients who have received this honor are Penny Doobie, Margaret Gifford, Barbara Kanelopoulos, Sharon Nunes, and Pamela Rothstein. And so this is a proclamation that honors each of them.
And so actually it's not the Selectmen's proclamation, but it's a recognition of basically the awarding of this by the Falmouth Historical Society. So be it hereby known that the town of Falmouth offers its sincere congratulations to the mentioned individuals
Thank you, sir.
in receiving the 21st Annual Falmouth Historical Society Heritage Award for the enduring commitment to the improvement and importance of our community. Your contributions to our town and to Falmouth's population have made it a better place for all of us. And then I'll read the body of the actual recognition certificate. Be it hereby known that the town of Falmouth offers its most sincere congratulations to these individuals in receiving the 21st Annual Falmouth Historical Society Heritage Award for your enduring commitment to the improvement and importance of our community. Your contributions to our town and to Falmouth's population have made it a better place for us.
I would second those.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you to all, and
These
thank you for the
individuals
service.
certainly are deserving of this. I mean, they've
Absolutely.
served the town in many capacities. I noticed that at least 2 of them are on the Falmouth League of Women Voters membership. So they're very active individuals. I should say really citizens of this town.
Certainly. And so for recognition, do we have any particular things anybody wants to bring up for recognition? I do have one thing I'd like to mention is a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday, well, on a Friday, actually, first of all, a resident of Black Beach called me and said, Doug, someone has put a big giant trash barrel out in the middle of Black Beach, and it's just going to fill up with trash, and the people are going to pile stuff around it, and it's already starting, it's already full. And I called up, I sent an email, and Peter McConerty responded and says, oh, we can send a couple of guys out there. And they, sure enough, sent a truck out there, and I met with them and showed them where the path was. And they dragged this big barrel, and we collected up all the other trash that was out there. That's on a Friday afternoon at the end of the day. And then Saturday morning, I was out at Monont Beach, and there was some issues out there that looked like safety concern. I sent another email, and I said, I hate to be such a pain, but I know it's Saturday morning. And sure enough, Peter, who happens to be here tonight, says, we can send a crew out there right now. And they sent the guys out there, and they took care of the safety issues. And I'd just like to give recognition, because that's pretty great response. And it's not, I don't think it's special because I'm sitting here, because I've called DPW for other things, and it's pretty similar. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to that point, I think, consistently, Peter and DPW, they get quite a few of the communications from the community, because our DPW touches on so many different aspects, and they really do. We always see it because we're usually copied on it, but we can see how quickly those responses are made when it's issues of recycling or trash pickup, which we know get disrupted, particularly in the summertime. And so there's just so much that DPW covers, and, you know, I think we consistently, you know, just feel that the services that this community gets from that department are just at the highest level. And they really are responsive. And again, if you had been Joe Smith instead of Doug Brown, you probably would have gotten the very same response.
And I've called in things before, like clogged drains and, you know, just any concern that a resident might have, and it's always addressed, so.
Potholes in the street.
Yeah.
So
So I appreciate
Peter, and
that.
thanks to all your staff as well.
Certainly appreciate that. Announcements. Are there any announcements? Yes, Ms. Scott Price?
I'd like to announce that on Thursday, July 15th at noon is the annual Ambrose Gerald Jr. Lecture. Dr. Ambrose Gerald is a longtime resident of Falmouth. He worked in Woods Hole for over 30 years, and he's the the founding director of the Woods Hole PEP internship that I now co-direct, that brings a group of underrepresented students to Woods Hole every summer. And so every year now there is a lecture named in his honor, someone who comes to the community and talks to us about being more diverse and welcoming. And so this week it will be at noon on Zoom, Thursday, July 15th. And if you'd like to participate, go to woodsholediversity.org and look for the Gerald Lecture, and you can register. And it will also be streamed on FCTV, I think, Channel 13.
Live then?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. Any other announcements?
Sorry, I just have one quick one.
Okay.
The Portuguese American Association of Falmouth is having a clam boil, a traditional clam boil, this coming Saturday. If people are interested, you can go to the PAA website or call them, or you could reach out to me and let me know if you want tickets. If you don't like clams, you can have a chicken dinner that they have, but it's going to be a great event. It's going to be outside in the on the patio there, and lots of really wonderful homemade food. I think the tickets are $40, and believe me, you're going to have to be rolled away from there.
And the chicken is 30, and then
And the
there's
chicken is
another one
30.
that's less.
Children are 15. So for that, you're going to get an enormous amount of food. There'll be some music and entertainment. So if anybody's interested, it's open to the public.
Robin and I are in for that.
Yes, I saw.
Tickets already. Okay, public comment. Is anyone here that would like to make, Barbara?
Good evening, and it's Barb Schneider, Precinct 4. I'm here tonight because I like to try my best to get things to happen that are positive for everyone in the town of Falmouth. And while the ball was apparently dropped on our single-use plastic containers bylaw that was supposed to be in effect as of September 2020 on town property, I want to make sure that the administration and the select board is doing something very proactive to get people ready for the September 1st, 2021 bylaw that goes into effect. The week before 4th of July, and a little earlier than that, I was upset to find plastic water bottles being sold both at the farmers market and at the beach concessions. When I questioned, unfortunately, people who are usually very knowledgeable were misinterpreting. I was told that they were biodegradable plastic bottles. I was told that that didn't go into effect till this coming September, which is not true. On town land, we're not supposed to be selling plastic bottles of water. And I want to make that not happen for what's going to happen this September, which is no commercial sale of single-use plastic containers as of 9/1, with a warning, $150 fine for the second offense and a $300 for the third. We tend to have a lot of rules in this town that don't have a compliance person. or we give the compliance on to somebody who's already swamped, and they can't possibly run around and follow up on these things. And so I'm hoping there can be a discussion that happens on what's going to occur about this. And I remind everybody, we have 1 million seabirds, 100,000 marine mammals that die, not to mention so many turtles. A lot of them die from waste plastic in the ocean. And that's why this town wanted to do this. So I hope I can get you to be proactive and let people know this time they shouldn't be ordering cases of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Mr. Chairman, normally we don't comment, but I'd be remiss if I didn't. I just want to confirm for the board that the Health Department staff has already notified all our licensed stores in the town of that September 1st deadline. Just wanted to advise you of that.
This may be one that kind of slipped through the cracks because it's a farmer's market thing and not an official store.
The earlier one, yes.
Correct. And we're gonna have a nip bottle ban go into effect, and Mashpee just recently enabled theirs, and they didn't put a delay on it. They started it right away, so even though they voted it later, it's in effect earlier. Okay, licenses, approved application for Sunday entertainment license for Barnstable County Agricultural Society Incorporated, Cape Cod Fairgrounds, Sunday, July 25th, 2021. Any questions about that? Any concerns?
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very well. Licenses B is application for a special one-day license and malt, one-day wine and malt beverage license, Gray Matter Marketing, Cape Cod Brewfest, Cape Cod Fairgrounds, Saturday, September 25th, 2021. 2021, what am I saying? And so,
Move approval.
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Bond refinancing, welcome, Ms. Mullen.
Start this packet.
All right.
Start signing with a red tab.
Sign if you want to save.
I mentioned to Angela about, the bond refinancing and how we all sign, so and I know we've all seen it in the past, so we'll just move that along the table.
We did get briefed on this at our retreat. That's why
Exactly,
we're
you
not
did get
asking a lot
briefed
of
on it in
questions.
retreat. There is a memo in your packet that actually outlines this refinancing.
If you could just briefly comment so the public can understand.
Absolutely. So, in the memo, I went to the board in May 10th, 2021, to ask the board's permission to at least look at a refinancing. I'd like to know that there was interest in case, the interest rates were favorable. We had ran a refinancing at that date, and it looked like we might save maybe $1.6 million, $1.7 million over the next 10 years. So the select board voted to move forward with the refinancing. And as you know, interest rates change. And so we went out to bid in July, and we received a number of bids. I think it was like 11 of them. And the lowest bid was Janney Montgomery with a 0.728511 true interest cost. And we're refinancing $10.3 million in bonds. The majority of that is the high school. And we'll be saving $1.9 million over the next 10 years, which is substantial. So I would just ask the board to vote to accept the refinancing and the bid for this, what we're signing tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, yes.
Thank you, Jennifer,
Paying attention to
for
that
all
and
of your work.
taking action.
Close management of our borrowing.
Especially on that project. That's,
Yeah.
We need to get a couple bucks back on that one. Okay, B is vote to sign a preservation restriction for 533 Woods Hole Road, the Dome. Any comments or questions or concerns about
I see
that?
Attorney Ahmet here.
Attorney Ahmet, would you like to comment?
Thank you. For the record, Attorney Bob Ament, I represent Woods Hole Partners. This is a straightforward request, really, and yet it's somewhat momentous because, as you know, the restoration of the Nautilus property and the dome in particular has been a subject of discussion for significant portions of about the last 18 years. A lawsuit was resolved in favor of the town and the developer a few months ago. Things had been pretty much delayed during the trial court stage of litigation. And even though an abutter has appealed the Board of Appeals decision, that is, appealed the court's decision upholding it to the appeals court, with the lower court's decision, the developer is going to proceed at his risk with the project. And so since March, things have really been full speed ahead to satisfy the numerous requirements of the Cape Cod Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Historical Commission, and so on. And the list of obligations and tasks is a very long one. But one of them has been to complete a preservation restriction with respect to the dome so that it will be restored and maintained in perpetuity. The document that we've presented for your signature has been approved as to form and content by the Massachusetts Historical Commission and by the Falmouth Historical Commission. So the process, once the state gives its approval for local signatures, is to have the historical commissioners sign the document and to have the selectmen accept it on behalf of the town. And then it goes back to the state for signature before it gets recorded. So as of earlier today, 4 of the 5 historic commissioners had signed the document. The commission itself voted to approve it a few weeks ago. And we'll get your signatures, and we'll move on with the preservation of the dome. One of the wrinkles is that the Massachusetts Historic Commission asks that the signature of each of the selectmen be notarized. From a conveyancer's point of view, I think that's unnecessary, but sometimes you just do what people ask. It's the easier thing to do. So you have before you the preservation restriction. Your signatures would come on page 13. If it would be most convenient to the board, I'm perfectly willing to notarize your signatures and take care of that and not have to have it done sort of piecemeal with your coming into Town Hall, if that's acceptable.
Sounds like a helpful suggestion. Thank you. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but could you inform us a little bit? Do you think, would it be likely that the developer will begin with demolishing that unsafe structure? Would that be the first phase? Do you know?
Begin with demolishing which structure?
The old motel that's on that property that's
well, the motel, the former motel buildings, as you know, are in complete disrepair and a danger.
Right.
Really, no work can be done until those are taken away. That is certainly the first step.
Okay, good. Thank you. And
So I think you just need a motion for it, is that?
yes.
Okay.
Is there a motion to accept this preservation restriction?
I'd so move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And
And I think it's in your red book. As are probably some of the other, we haven't done this in a while where we've had to actually
I
sign.
think you may have 2 copies, and if you want to sign them both, well, that's terrific. We would keep one so nothing gets lost when it gets sent to the state,
You
and
are
we'd have
correct.
one to use.
I'm just gonna tell you, I signed this by mistake twice, so just put your name over it. Okay.
You can just
I'm gonna
use
sign
this
where it
one.
was written. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
I'll pass it.
Yep. Angela, I'm gonna pass that to you. Sure. That's something different.
Oh, that's not.
Thank you.
Now, I don't need to ask you for identification because I have personal knowledge of the identity of each of you.
Okay.
But I do need to ask if you sign this on behalf of the town as a preservation restriction freely and voluntarily.
Yes.
I do.
I do. Enthusiastically.
Thank you so much for all your support.
Is there a second copy?
You said there was a second copy of this?
Well, I'll take one away
That's
if
the large.
that's
Yeah.
okay
The
with.
second copy only needs one signature, correct? Is that what?
No, this is the only copy. This is a separate thing. This is the bond that's circulating.
Oh, no.
Oh.
This is the preservation that we just signed, and that we
Okay.
only have one. But I think that's all Attorney Ahmet
That'll be
needs,
fine.
right?
So Nancy
I
just-
thought you said you were gonna have 2 copies.
Well, I think that we delivered 2 copies, an original and a copy, but whatever. One will be fine. We'll take good care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the one.
Thanks for backing me up.
Yeah, that's all I see. What about this one? Is that the second copy that,
Oh, it may
You
be,
want
but there's no
signed?
tabs.
no, there is no tab.
Do we need
That
to
may be the
fill out
second
this-
copy.
Do we need to sign both copies?
You probably don't need to sign them if you've got it there and it's easy for
Attorney
you to
Ahmet,
do.
do you want to just take a look at this for 1 minute to make sure?
Yeah, let me show you what I'm
Because there's a
talking
couple
about,
places,
if
I
you
don't know
would.
if it's 2 copies or just another section.
So we signed here. Do you want this one signed? Is that the second? Okay. You should have all the signatures.
I think there weren't enough tabs.
Take away,
Take this with me.
certainly, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This is more of the bond paperwork coming your way. I'll just set it here for now. Actually, I'll give it to Nancy. Sometimes you're not able to sign until the end when you're running the meeting.
We don't have to do this very often. A year or 2.
I signed in too many places.
Bob, you'll be filing that then? You're gonna carry the water on that restriction? Very good. If asked, just want to confirm. Thank you.
I believe that is complete.
Part of it. That goes right on top. This goes on top of that. I don't know why it wasn't connected to it, but
Okay.
Nancy has the other half
And
of
then
it.
I have another half over here.
Okay, so while we're continuing with that, I'd like to entertain the next item, which is vote to accept donation from David's Old Silver Swim Incorporated, Robert and Susan Catalano, in the amount of $500 to the Beach Department donation account.
So move with gratitude. Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
That's very nice. In the name of, I think, Dr. Garber.
I believe that sounds right, yes. And the next is vote to accept a donation from T-Ticket Civic Association in the amount of $600 to the Veterans Department donation account.
So move, again, with gratitude to the T-Ticket Civic Association.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's very nice. They're regulars with that, aren't they?
Yes.
Thank you to the T-Ticket Civic Association. Approve request, next is a approve request to refinance affordable home mortgage on number 3 St. Mark's Road. And we had that information in the packet. Did anyone have any questions about it?
No, seems reasonable.
Like fair request? I'll entertain a motion if I could.
Can I ask one question?
sir.
And I don't know that anybody can answer this, but I wonder whether there's some kind of capital gains requirement that the homeowner might incur as a result of getting cash out of this before, there was some other transaction that might offset that. Typically, if you purchase a home and then you sell it purchase another home, that the capital gains is sort of deferred as you move it into another piece of property. But in this case, they're gonna take $10,000.
But it's not really income because they're borrowing it. They're not getting
This
paid.
is capital gains, not income.
Ah.
Anyway, it's just something they should be
certainly don't
alerted
know.
to, because it might crop up and bite them at some point.
Are they doing it as like a HELOC?
Yes,
Okay.
right. My understanding is they're taking equity out of the house. I
So
don't
they're
know-
just
I don't know if it's for
refinancing
home-
it.
they're
Yeah.
It's a refinance.
And
I
And they're
don't
rolling
know
in
if it's-
10,000
Right.
into the refi. So it would just be, so
Oh,
in
I
other
got
words, they're
you.
gonna
Right.
borrow the 10,000 extra. So I don't think so, because they're, yeah.
So if I might, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Certainly, if you have any other questions related to the restriction, what I would ask, if the board is comfortable moving forward, is to vote to authorize a refinance of up to $199,228. The request at this point is $164,000, but we know from experience that sometimes at the last minute, that number gets adjusted. So we don't want to have to come back to the board to adjust that amount. And that, the amount of $199,000 is what is allowed under the deed restriction.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good for them.
Yes, indeed.
And next is vote to appoint a member of the Select Board to the Steamship Authority's Woods Hole Falmouth Noise and Traffic Mitigation Working Group. This was formerly served by former Select Person Doug Jones. And we had a suggestion from Steve Sayers regarding possible inclusion of Peter McConerty as a consideration.
Well, yeah, that actually came from the, someone from with the Martha's Vineyard Commission. Steve
Okay.
just forwarded that
Okay.
email. He's just asking that you have a representative, and I'm not certain the makeup of the other individuals on that particular committee. As you know, Doug, you and I are on a different committee, so
Yes.
whatever the board would be more comfortable with. I've not had any conversation with Peter or any other staff member about considering that appointment, if the board would prefer to go in that direction.
Okay. Any comments from the board regarding this? Does anyone have a strong interest in serving on that committee? Not really.
Not particularly, if we're
Nope.
being honest.
Same here. I feel like it's a state regulation matter for the most part, and that we're gonna have, we can serve as a liaison on that committee, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Well, I think that Doug was actually a participant in the committee.
No, I understand, but I mean, yeah, but I think you're just simply there as a voice.
And
So
Mr.
we-
Chairman, if, pardon me, Selectman Patterson, I was just going to suggest if the board's pleasure is for me to assign it to an appropriately qualified staff member, I'll be happy to do that on your behalf.
Well, Mr. Sayers had mentioned that also in the other committee, or was it this one, that we should have some representation from planning staff?
Same committee. He just suggested, again, it was Michael Morrow, the transportation planners from Martha's Vineyard. It didn't come from the Cape Cod Commission, but Martha's Vineyard that suggested the town planner might like to sit in and observe.
Well, do you want to give this some thought and see if there's an appropriate staff member that might be more effective?
Happy to do so if it's the board's
And
pleasure.
then if that's not shaping up, then we'll come back and we'll revisit. And
Great. Be happy to explore that and report back to the board if I've made that assignment, if it's agreeable.
yes,
If I could just make the suggestion, I think this is maybe where Mr. Suso is going, but, you know, perhaps if it's a couple of staff that can share that, because, you know, I'm thinking of all the things Peter already has, or the times that, you know, things are really busy for Tom. So if it's the two of them, maybe making sure we have coverage, but maybe it's, you know, they're alternating or they're sharing that, if that's what you ultimately
Happy to explore
end up
that.
doing. But
I think that's good advice.
I would agree with that as well. I think just, you know, reading the suggestion from Steve Sayers to appoint Peter McConerty, I think you need to take a look at that and look at the work that they already
or
are
his
involved in.
representative, I think, because I don't think we can ask Mr. McConerty to take time off to
Agreed,
do this.
agreed.
Yep. Okay.
Not that it's not important, it certainly is, but I don't know how appropriate that is for a department head to
Use that timeline.
use
Agreed.
that time.
So you need a motion to, I move that we defer this matter to our town manager to recommend an appropriate individual.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, if I designate one or individual or another or jointly, do you want me to come back for the board to affirm that at your next meeting, or just to
You can
advise
just
you?
inform us by email that, it's taken care of.
Will do.
And if it doesn't shape up, just let me know and I'll cover the meeting for the next one until we get it
Great.
organized.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is special events. Recurring recommended Buzzards Bay Watershed Ride, Bike Path to Swope Center, MBL, Woods Hole, Sunday, October 3rd, 2021, 1 o'clock to 6 p.m.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And Mr. Chair, if I may, because we haven't done this in a long time, those events and some of the others we already approved should be in that red one.
Yes, they are.
And if we want to circulate them,
Okay.
I'm happy to pull them out if you want me to
Fine.
as they come up.
Second half
Good
of the
idea.
bond.
Okay.
Could also maybe comment and mention that all of these permits have conditions that need to be, conformed to
Right.
by the applicants. So rather than us repeating that over and over again as we go through these, I think it's just important that we're approving these permits as conditioned in the document, and it's going to be signed and distributed back to them.
Good point. Thank you, Sam. Okay, the next is Annual Summer Bazaar, Waquoit Congregational Church, Parsons Lane, one way, Friday and Saturday, July 16th and July 17th, 2021, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I will comment on this one just for the benefit of the Waquoit Church folks, that the police department did recommend to prohibit parking along Route 28 for safety. It's been a problem in the past, so please take note of that. Is there a motion to approve as conditioned?
I'd move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Here's a new one, Blues and Views concert. William Moore Bandshell, William Moore at the Bandshell, or the Music Pavilion, as we have been recently calling it, Wednesday, August 18th, 2021, 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m.
So move for approval?
Okay.
Second.
Second?
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Note that it's on a Wednesday and farmer's market is on Thursday. I did get a phone call from a resident, one of the boaters down there, about the farmer's market last week, coinciding with another event that we approved at the same time on the other side, and it created a parking problem, so we're gonna have to be maybe a little more careful on approving those dual events at the same time. Blues and Views, we're done. Beach wedding ceremony, Falmouth Heights Beach, Jackwith, Friday, September 10th, 2021. Any concerns with that?
No, I don't think we had any.
I move to approve.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
The next is beach parking, Mill Road parking lot, Moore, Thursday, 7/29/2021. Now, this one, Mr. Suso, I thought we talked about when people want to park at beach parking lots, we would adopt the same kind of policy that the school has, which is it's free public property, and you only need to notify the police department that you'll be congregating there, and make sure you're out before the lot is closed. That way, we don't have to approve it, because we can't really give them any special permission, because we can't reserve parking for them.
Right.
And there's not a lot we can do. I mean, I guess the only advantage to us seeing this is that we take a deposit in case there's litter in the parking lot or something. What's the sense of the board on that? Should we continue to control this?
I think the issue was, again, just as you noted, that wedding that wanted to have spots at Minot, and we can't guarantee any spots. So I'm quite sure that, well, I don't know, if it's a really nice, well, it's Mill Road. I mean, it probably won't be full at 5 o'clock, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's nice to have a heads up, but if the practice is that they just notify the police department, although I don't even know why they would have to notify the police department.
Just because they might drive by and see a lot of cars and say, what's going on here? It's late at night and where these cars belong.
I just hate to give the impression that somehow we're guaranteeing those parking spots, because we're not doing that.
Right, and the whole point of the permit and a fee and all of that, the fee to me says if we collect it, we're sort of guaranteeing that we're giving them the spots. I don't think we should be entertaining these permits.
Well, that was our feeling at the last time we talked about one of these, was that we really didn't think that it was something we wanted to continue to do. And I do appreciate the school's policy of just saying, you know, you're free to park there, make sure you don't cause any problems, and
If it's available.
if it's not
You know, it's
full.
kind of
I
Exactly.
think, I think maybe this is why Mr. McGardo's getting up, but I think they're trying to use the beach, right? They're not using the beach? It says rehearsal dinner, at
It's a near-
2:46, I
yeah,
got
it's a
you.
nearby.
It's,
Okay.
it's
Mr.
just for
McGardo, do you
parking.
want to comment on this?
Yes, thank you for letting me speak, members of the board. It is a procedure that I picked up from Don Hoffer, that when there is an applicant wishing to use beach property, we reach out with a personal phone call to get the backstory, which is usually always one, and information that they may require to help make a more successful event. When I spoke with Mr. Moore, I explained to him, under no circumstances will we guarantee you any spaces, not at all.
Right.
They are subject to availability, and you may use your overflow to go to the main parking lot by the bathhouse. But you need to be out of there between 10 and 10:30, or we're locking you in, or we're getting the hook, whichever comes first, so to speak. But I want you to know that we did make personal contact with Mr. Moore. He happens to be a former student of mine, like so many people, and he's well aware of the constrictions. He will reach out and contact me the day before with any changes, and I will either affirm or deny those changes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I might just sort of follow up on Mr. Mercado's comments, I think maybe there is there's a distinction that Bruce touched on that's important, which is that, we need to have some prearranged understanding about when the lot closes. The school maybe doesn't need to worry about how long the cars stay there.
It's true.
And I do very much take the point of why are we charging a fee for something when we're not really offering anything. I think more than anything, it just ensures that there is this individualized dialogue so that there's a clear understanding of all parties as to, what is expected on both sides. So I think it seems to be working. I don't know if you want to consider reducing the fee in the future, but I guess I would like to encourage that we have a process that ensures that we have this really good one-on-one dialogue that the beach department has historically maintained with these requests.
Okay, if you think there's a value to it, I guess I won't dismiss it.
I guess, from my perspective, it's still in collecting the fee is issuing a permit. And I couldn't vote for issuing a permit to, and again, taking the money and issuing a permit to me says, I have that spot. And you don't. Because
I
we
think it
just
says
don't
that
know.
right on the,
It's explicit that they don't.
yeah.
Right, and I see that.
I take
see
your point.
that.
It's unusual that.
It's just something that I'm not comfortable signing off on a permit that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but let me also argue that there's always overhead with the use of any town property like this, whether it be picking up trash, collecting trash, and what have you. So I think there is, a justification for a fee for this kind of a formal permit.
So if I might make a suggestion for the future, I think it would be helpful for us to review our policy on that specific issue. And maybe we just have a lesser fee, and maybe we don't call it a permit, but whatever we call it, notification or something, so that what happens the way Mr. McGardo is explaining it continues to happen, where we have an understanding that this event might be taking place, but it's not, it doesn't fall within our regular permitting fee schedule, because I do think it's a different animal, and I don't have a problem collecting something, because just the fact that Bruce or Maggie has a phone call with this individual has a cost associated with it, because they're taking away from the other duties that they do. But maybe we could review that at an upcoming.
Maybe that's something that the town manager's office could just approve with the same condition, if you think that's
You
appropriate.
can take that up, certainly.
Okay.
But, so I guess for this, since this does still fall within our permitting structure the way it is now, I guess I would move approval as it's outlined herein.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
No
Okay.
one.
Thank
One
you.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, that's application for an alteration to the licensed premises of an all alcoholic, that's 7:30, we're
Past it,
past
that's
that.
okay.
All alcoholic common victualler license, Chapquake Grill Incorporated, located at 410 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, continued from April 26th, May 24th, June 7th, and June 21st. Attorney Clower,
I'm
welcome.
going to try and find the public notice,
Okay.
which I think is right here. Okay. May I read it for you?
Yes, please, thank you.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws, as amended, the Chappaquiddick Grill, Inc. has applied for an alteration of premises of its all-alcoholic common victualler license located at 410 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, Mass. A hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, April 26, 2021, at 7:30 PM on the application. This was originally published on the April 16th, in the April 16th Falmouth Enterprise, and has been continued for the dates that were previously noted by the chair.
Very well. Would you like to speak to this tonight?
I'd welcome the chance. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney with Ament Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth. And I'm here tonight representing John Reed, the manager of Chappaquiddick Grill, Inc. We were here before you some weeks ago, and there's been a number of continuances based on a request for a revised site plan, which just unfortunately took some time to have prepared. That was submitted, and I know there's been kind of a flurry of correspondence today. I exchanged some emails with Mr. Suso, as well as with Ms. Downey, who's been fantastic throughout this process, as she always is. But we did submit the revised site plan last week and the other information that the board had asked for, which included some revisions to the application, the floor plan, the site plan, and an amendment to the lease. There was a referral by the town planner wherein he stated that he did not feel as though any change could be made to parking without approval from the planning board. I politely disagree with that, as I outlined in my email to Mr. Suso today. And that is for the simple reason that I do think he was correct that the proposed parking that had been shown on the front of the street would run contrary to the zoning bylaw, as it would require backing, new spots backing out onto the public way. We did submit the revised plan showing a change to that, but that does not, the revised plan that was submitted today does not require planning board review. It's not a site plan review decision. There is no existing site plan review decision for the property. Review by the planning board would be required if there was a modification of an existing site plan review or an application for a new one. However, we don't meet any of the requirements for site plan review, which would be the addition of more than 1,000 square feet of gross floor area or a change in use that requires a total of 5 or more parking spaces, but we're not adding any parking spaces. We're in fact reducing the number of parking spaces. We had a situation a few months ago out at the Bosun's Marina wherein the building was being torn down and a new building was being proposed, and there was no site plan review required in that instance because there was no addition to the parking. So similar to that, in this situation, we're not adding to the parking requirements. We're keeping the same number of seats. We've actually proposed a reduction in order to make the parking numbers work, I think, more efficiently. And otherwise, I believe we've submitted the information you've asked for. I understand that a lot of this came in today, and there's no way that anyone could have processed it in the time frame that it came in based on those referrals, but I did want to make the presentation. I'm open to having a discussion, and I'm happy to proceed however the board sees fit.
Okay. Initial comments from the board? So we do have a suggestion from the town manager that his opinion that probably should be tabled, but I did want to let you speak to it at least and get an idea and a sense of the board of if we're headed in the right direction. I will say that even though you may be right about technically not really needing to have a site plan review, when we are taking parking spaces from the front to use as dining and moving them to the back in a configuration that I'm not clear as to what the configuration is from the plans that I saw. And I did call you on the phone today to just raise that concern. So are the 7 new spaces in the back, are they new spaces that are to be designed, or are they?
So my understanding from speaking with Mike McGrath at Holmes & McGrath is that the the striping in the back is pretty poor right now, and there's been some discussion over the past few years of restriping it. And by simply restriping it, there is a chance to relocate some of the parking from the front to the back.
Okay, so this is not creating a new section of parking, it's just tightening it up?
Yes.
Now, the planning board has design guidelines, but they wouldn't have the opportunity to review those parking spaces to see if it fits within their guidelines unless this board refers it back to them, which I think we have the authority to do.
I wouldn't presume to tell you that you don't have that authority. I don't know that it is required, but we're certainly happy to, we understand that in order for this to proceed, we need whatever approvals we need, whether that be from you, from the planning board. Right now, as it's stated, I don't believe that we require planning board approval for what we're proposing. That said, the applicant understands that no matter what happens, we're not moving forward unless we have all the necessary approvals. So I know that this board has approved permits in the past conditionally upon other conditions being met.
Right.
And my main concern in representing the applicant is making sure that the board doesn't have an objection to the actual change that we're proposing, understanding that we will do and obtain whatever approvals we need to obtain.
Well, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I feel like it's more of a matter of like best practice, governmental best practice. That would be that out of respect for their role, I would think that we would ask the planning board to just review the parking changes and understand whether or not they really meet, the setbacks and the guidelines that they typically apply. Yes, Megan?
So I guess what my concern is I just don't have, and I think Mr. Suso was letting us know of maybe a conversation he had, but we don't have, unless I'm missing it in our emails, we didn't have an official weigh-in from town council on this. It wasn't included in what we got at 6 o'clock, right?
Bot's had a discussion with town council.
Okay.
And actually, Town Planner Bott has recommended a reduction of 16 seats in the restaurant to accommodate what he understood was being proposed. He indicated that he spoke with Attorney Clower late last week and passed that along. And I spoke to Tom Bott again today, and I'm convinced that at a minimum, he needs to complete his review and determine whether it really needs to go to the planning board, but at least have a significant zoning review, because that is a very sensitive area. The last I checked, there's still potential litigation with the other tenants there, and this is the 5th or 6th time that this board has continued this with the representation that it would be resolved. So that's why I'm recommending the tabling, and I also want to underscore that this premises has a permit for the next several months. They're not going to be able to, there's not a problem that there's a time urgency here. So this board has the opportunity to take the time to make sure that it's done properly along the lines you're, I think, talking about, and make certain that you haven't missed anything.
So I would just say from my perspective, I would, and I don't mean this as a slight against Tom Bott, but I would like to have Frank just give us a read-in on this. I know it came, later, and we didn't have that opportunity, but just for us to hear sort of directly from him and be able to kind of field those questions so that we have a sense of how he, sees, because obviously Frank has, in addition to being town council, has been through pretty much almost every permutation that involves, these type of circumstances. So I think it would be helpful for me anyway to have a sense of how he sees this process appropriately playing out. Before I'd be comfortable referring it to planning, I'd want to know if that's even something that, we should be considering.
Okay.
And I'd like to just offer a quick clarification. In speaking with Mr. Bott last week, he said if the applicant wanted to proceed without replacing the parking spaces, in order to eliminate the 8 parking spaces, he would suggest a reduction of 16 seats. I don't think he felt that there needed to be a reduction of 16 seats on any basis, just that if we wanted to proceed with just eliminating the parking that is there today without replacing it, he would suggest reducing the number of seats. But obviously the loss of 16 seats over the long term would counter effect any benefits to the outdoor seating.
Right. And I don't want you to get the impression that, I'm certainly in favor of this. I think the outdoor seating is great, and it's been a great benefit, and it's one of the good things coming out of COVID is this new appreciation is outdoor dining.
There are certainly some benefits that we're finding, some silver linings of what's gone on in the past few months.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Are there still ongoing legal issues with other tenants?
There
in the
is still a
Chapel Court
pending
Grill?
case with one tenant in the complex, which I know Assistant Town Council Mullen has been in touch with the landlord's attorney about, but it has been, I don't think anything's been filed on that case in about 9 months. It's just kind of languishing, often what happens with cases like this.
So I'd like to see the legal issues cleared up, and I'd also like some kind of agreement between our town planner, our Tom Bott, and Kevin Clower, and have a weigh-in from Attorney Duffy. I'm not prepared to move this.
Right. So is tabling the appropriate action for bringing it up
Well,
again
it's the
later
only
without any
alternative to setting
prejudice?
an arbitrary date and doing the very same thing you did tonight once again.
So I guess my question
Done
is,
it
would
5
it make
times in a
more
row.
sense, would it make more sense for it to be tabled? And I'm not familiar with the tabling process, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not something I think we see very often. If need be, we could certainly withdraw without prejudice. I'd prefer not to, just to save the filing fees and expense and time for the town.
I think tabling it, I mean, we've done that before, where we table
I'm
it.
just not familiar with it.
Yes,
It just
where we
means we're
table
taking a
it.
break.
Yeah.
We need to get more information, and we
It's
can
not
come
gonna
back
come
and
back.
revisit. It's not any
So
penalty.
so we don't have a set time frame in which we have to be back.
Exactly.
I'd like to be back sooner rather than later for obvious reasons.
I'd
Certainly.
prefer not to set a date, however, because it has gone on 5 different
Sure.
times. So when you're prepared and you have agreement and you have more information on the legal piece, and we have weigh-in from the town planner and town council, then I think we would set a date. But I'm not even prepared to move another date, because I don't want to, go through this again, and we're not really
So,
ready.
Mr. Suso, would you be reaching out to Attorney Duffy, or should I? I'm not quite sure what the best process there is.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when he gets back to you, I think that probably is the best time for us to try to connect with Mr. Bott to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think it would, if I might just, and I know that we do this, but it might just be helpful for, now that everyone can be in the same space, for those folks that we just mentioned to sit down in one space, maybe with the chair or some member of the board, and just hash it out and get it done, because it has kind of been.
Sure. I think the delay to this point had been getting the site plan.
Yes,
and-
which is fine, but but just to be really
Yep.
use everyone's time wisely, and to make sure everyone's hearing the same thing, and that we're not having, Mr. Duffy's opinion, Attorney Duffy's opinion come through Tom Bott, and, just everyone hears directly. I think that will be helpful.
Just so the board's aware, what we received came in at about 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes.
Well, that's fine. That's the reason you did not have it earlier.
Right.
Totally understand.
And certainly, this is kind of breaking new ground, and
Yep.
I'm sure it'll be helpful to others that come
Yep.
after you, so
Yeah, I think
we'll work it out and
I
get
think
it
this is
done right
something
the
we'll see
first
more
time.
of, and
It'll be helpful to everyone.
I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I think we have to take a public comment.
Certainly, please step to the podium.
Okay.
Thank you.
And can I offer one suggestion or one question?
Pardon me?
I have one question I want to ask.
Okay.
Attorney
Just one
Clower.
second,
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry, no, I meant to the board.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay.
I wanted just to make a suggestion that we make a very clear list for Mr. Clower of what we expect from him before he comes back the next time. I don't know
What those things are, but.
what that process
Yep.
is exactly, but I think it would be very helpful for him and for all of us to be very clear and intentional on what we expect from him before he comes back again.
Okay.
And if there is a meeting with all of the players, which I think is a really good idea, I'd like to have some sort of written outcome from that, so
Right.
that we know in writing what Mr. Bott says, and we know in writing what town council has suggested in order for us to move forward.
Mr. Sousa, would you mind kind of recapping what you think those steps would be that you're going to, or if you haven't formulated it completely yet, then that's understandable.
Well, my understanding is just setting up a meeting with town council and Tom Bott, and if it's appropriate at the initial meeting to have representative of Mr. Clower or whomever they designate to sit in, I'm happy to have that occur as well.
I guess that's a good starting point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Anthony Jeffrey, and I am a tenant in the plaza. As most of you know, I own and operate Murphy's Package Store. The litigation is alive and well. Murphy's Package Store is the plaintiff in that action. It has been sitting for a bit. COVID-related issues, protections, and the like. We didn't feel it was appropriate for the past several months to move ahead until we had a better sense of what might be going on with Mr. Reed's intentions and so on and so forth. I would be open to a meeting, to sitting in at a meeting with my attorney and trying to hash some of this stuff out as a tenant who's been, definitely impacted by the patio being located out front. I think I've got some good alternatives, maybe solutions, if I could, to the problem going forward that might save the board some time and the applicant some money, frankly. So it is alive and well, the litigation. I wasn't sure that my appearance here tonight would be appropriate. My comments with respect to how the patio has impacted us.
Right.
I can certainly do that in the future at a time that might be more appropriate.
Okay.
And I'm happy to do so. But, I think the message I'd like to send tonight is that we are willing to sit and chat and try to resolve this so that everybody,
I'm
can
not
coexist.
It might be a couple of different meetings. I'm not sure if the zoning discussion is completely germane to a separate legal issue.
I'd be a little concerned about a three-way meeting where there's litigation.
I'm concerned with active litigation, that the town should,
Yeah,
I don't
that
think
might
should be
need, might
involved
need to
in
be
that.
worked
This
out
kind of
separately.
separate discussion should have
And
happened
I
already.
understand that, but
Yeah.
again, this is not a situation where I'm standing here pounding my fist on the table saying,
Sure.
I want to put this guy out of business.
No.
What I'm saying is, your intentions, your plans have impacted my business. This is how, and this is how I would propose that we resolve it.
So wouldn't that be a conversation between you and your attorney and Mr. Clower? And, yes.
Right.
Of course.
So I think, to me, that would be the place where the conversation to try and come to the middle on something.
Of course.
I don't know that it would be, that the town would necessarily be involved in that.
Yeah, ours is going to be different.
'Cause
It's going
that's
to be
active
more about the
litigation.
legalities.
Which is fine, which is why I initially mentioned that my appearance here might be premature.
Okay.
But I did want to attend and say hello
Absolutely.
and let you know, all know who I was.
Appreciate you coming.
And I just wanted to say that your presence is, on your advice of counsel, but that's, is perfectly appropriate when we have the hearing, because you
course.
can come up, and part of
Right,
what we
right.
can consider when
Of
we,
course.
is for you to
Yeah.
tell us about the impact of it, because
Of course.
everything that goes into allowing something like this isn't just, the pieces that Attorney Clower was talking about with town council and Tom Bott, but things exactly like what you're talking
Sure.
about. So please feel free,
We
when you
understand
see
that.
it,
Yeah.
come back and you can,
Of
really
course.
express that piece of it.
Certainly.
You are a small business owner right in that area, so I agree.
Tight space
Yes, thank you.
with a lot going on.
Okay, well.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
So I'd move to, I guess we're tabling it. Do we have to close it for today and then table it? Just table it, right?
I think you
Close the
table it.
hearing.
Close the hearing.
Close the hearing and then
Yeah.
table.
And move to table.
So I'd move to close the hearing,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
and I'd move to table the hearing until a future date.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and certainly your patience as we've gotten to this point, and we look forward to being back in front of you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have discussion update on COVID-19 issues. Health agent Scott McGann is with us,
In person.
live,
Live and in person.
not just on the video.
Actually, when I'm doing the COVID presentation, sometimes it's easier when you're on the screen.
To have all your technology, yeah.
So where are we? So vaccination-wide, we're making small gains. We're averaging about 100 new doses, so first dose is about 100 second doses, 150 second doses per week. So it's definitely slowed down, but we're at 76% of all residents have at least one, with almost 70% fully vaccinated. When you factor in eligibility, when you take out the under 12s, you're at 83 and 76, so it's pretty robust. It's just, that's about where we're ending up. One thing I am noticing that we're just about every age group, we're about 6 to 8% of people not getting their second dose. So I'd encourage everybody to get their second dose. When we talk about Delta variant, and talk about more variants that come out, not getting that second dose might be the difference. I did a little bit of a deep dive. So we've had 192 cases since April 1st, 142 in April, 43 in May, 3 in June, and 4 in July. So You can see what happens once you hit a certain threshold with vaccinations, right? We're about 94% of those cases were unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated people. So remember, you've heard all along the vaccines are 90% effective. We're averaging about 94% effective. So
That's all the vaccines?
Out of the 192 cases we've had, yes. Yeah. So out of all of that, we've had 12 what I call vaccine breakthrough. You've had some cases where somebody got a shot and in between or 2 days after they got the first dose. You factor them out, they're not fully vaccinated. Fully vaccinated, we're about 94%, which they said would be right around in the 90% range. So, the cases have definitely dropped off. Like I said, we've had a couple come in this week. But 7 total since June 1st is pretty remarkable considering where we were the whole month of April, 142. And I didn't go back to March. I think it's even higher in March. So a little bit about the Delta variant. You guys have been hearing about that. It's about 20 to 30% of cases in Massachusetts already, and 51.7% last time I looked throughout the country. That's pretty quick. Vaccines do still appear to be effective. You hear different things on the news. We haven't had anything from the state on exactly any of this. Seems to be just as effective. The vaccines are effective with severe disease. But again, I want to stress the need for that second dose. You should have got that second dose. Because if it is, there's a slight decline in its efficacy, that's going to be compounded, by the fact that you didn't get your second dose. So I would recommend anybody who had not gotten it, even if it's been well beyond the 21 to 28 days, you really should get that second dose.
Is there a limit?
Well,
where you start over?
It's a good question. At what point do we start over? I think you're not going to be as good as it was if you went just to 28 within that sort of 3 or 4 week period, that time frame.
Is the first dose the same exact material as the second dose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And boosters may still be the same. You've heard a little bit about boosters. We have no information on boosters. I think it was, if you remember our discussion, that it wasn't a very clean vaccine process, to say the least, right? Hopefully we learn from our mistakes if we do have to get to the point of that. Mm-hmm. I'm only hearing that in the news. The state hasn't come down. There's nothing definitive on that. We haven't gotten a few calls this week on it. But
Dr. Fauci said we don't need the second shot of Pfizer. I just saw it just before I came here.
Seriously?
Yeah.
The booster.
Yeah,
Booster.
I mean, no, not the second shot, excuse me, the extra booster.
Yeah, so that's still up in the air, and I haven't gotten anything from the state, so anything I tell you would be premature whether we would be doing that or not. I'm just saying if we had to, at some point, I think the state would be better prepared on how they're going to give it out.
Did you have something?
So,
I had one quick question on Delta variant, if you could tell me, because I saw something and I only read it briefly in the paper. Are you getting information when you get COVID numbers? Are you getting information like Delta versus, are they giving that to you?
I could get that information if I asked. They're not sampling everybody for the Delta. So you grab certain sample size, okay? So they may test, I don't know what their metrics are, but let's say 1 in 1,000, or they wouldn't go that high because we're only getting 100 cases a day. So back then, when we had the B117 one or something like that, they would sequence maybe 15 or 20 or 30 because it's a more involved process. So they'll just take that and just extrapolate that out, say, okay, so for every 100 we test, we're getting 20 to 27, then they know it's about 27%. And so, but they're not calling us and telling us that one's this one and that one's that one.
Okay.
What they did for the B117 is they said, we found it in your in your town.
Okay.
With 20 to 30% of all cases in Massachusetts, it's definitely here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no arguing that. I mean, if you get 2 or 3 out of every 10, some of them happening here. So out of the 7 we've had, if you took 20% or 30%, we've had 1 or 2 of those be the Delta. It's going to take over as the main. It's already taken over as the main, and that's why we have to rush to get everybody vaccinated. We're all floating on the same rock, so it really doesn't matter what country you live in. You just got to get that, or we're just going to have these pop up.
Thank you.
So I think, coming into the fall, you're going to have some little fires that you'll have to put out, and you'll have some cases, and not everybody's been vaccinated, so,
Hi, nice to see you in the flesh. Of the cases that we have, is there Do we know which ones are residents and how many are not residents? Like, do we know if there's
Oh,
more?
the cases that I get will only be residents. I'm only,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so how the system works is, I'm only allowed to see Falmouth cases. So last summer, a lot of people were saying, well, we're not getting a lot of cases here, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of people from other towns floating around. You would see an increase in Falmouth cases if people were bringing it in from other parts, if that's kind of where you're going with it.
Yeah.
So you would see the increase in our numbers, right? Yes, if somebody's here from New York, the contact tracing and the case counts against their town or their city in New York.
Okay.
But we're not like we're not meshing, right?
Yeah.
So we're mingling when we're here. You would have seen the rise in cases. So if, for example, and I hope this doesn't, but let's say the end of July, we're getting 12, 15, 18. We know we're getting a mix of it from other areas.
Got it. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Any other news?
It's another reason to get vaccinated, isn't it?
It's a good thing. Yeah, we should be. I mean, again, we're well above average. We've been well above average throughout this whole thing anyway.
Do you think we'll reach a point where the vaccination will no longer be free for people who have waited too long and they'll have to pay for it?
I don't have any knowledge of that. I could not see why we would
Trying
change
to think
that.
of some way to motivate these young people who think it's not important.
There's a lottery now in Massachusetts.
Yeah, you can sign up for the lottery. I
$1 million.
did. I did, why not? You know.
Long shot.
Not that I'd leave you guys anyway with $1 million, but I.
We wouldn't let you. We would track you down. I had one other question, and this is, you don't have to answer because this is coming right at you right now, but I'm just wondering, are we thinking about ways, I know we approved the road race, and we approved it kind of on the beginning part. I don't think we weren't really talking about Delta. We already knew we had variants. We knew there were going to be an issue. But this particular variant has seemed to kind of, start to run like wildfire a bit. Are we, and this is just a broader question for all of us, but are we kind of continuing to engage in some conversations about how we make that as safe as we can, given that there are going to be 8,000 plus, 8,000 runners plus their family and friends, now that this is kind of a more emerging issue?
Well, we don't have, the guidance is gone. Do we
Right.
want to add layers to it? If I wasn't here tonight and I had the Board of Health meeting, actually, I was invited to the Road Race Committee meeting that they had tonight, but I have my Board of Health and you guys tonight. But I don't think we're at a point, the numbers don't bear out the fact that we need to start doing anything. Okay. We went from June 10th to almost July 1st without a case. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, do we really want to start running out and staggering, and doing a lot of different stuff? I don't necessarily, the state's not indicating that or anything of that nature. That doesn't mean we can't pivot, quickly on it, and stuff like that.
I'm just thinking post-race. There's not much we can do because the things are out, people
the
are
race,
invited.
so the risk isn't really the race. Okay, the risk is you cram in 103,000 people in a place that can't handle it, right? We all know what road race is, so you have to stay home. So been here long enough to know you got to stay home on road race, right? So the risk is actually with everybody sort of crammed together on the ancillary things that happen around the race. But there's no guidance. There's nothing, at this point. We're back to where we were pre-pandemic. Is that going to change in the future? I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just note, as the board will recall, at your last meeting, you voted transition from the mandatory mask policy to the masking advisory that the Board of Health also has in place. And as you've probably noted, that's for municipal government buildings. And we've posted Town Hall and the other applicable buildings, as you've noted when you visited Town Hall. So that is in place, and we're moving forward. Thank you.
And each week I'll send out, we'll put it on the website, where we are with vaccinations and where we are with cases. And what I'm going to do this in the chart that I put out every week is we'll change the color from May 29th on. You can kind of see where, since we dropped all the guidance, where the cases have been going, and kind of see it that way. Change the color. You know how I have the blue chart with the dots. We'll cut it off and we'll go with a different color at the end, and you can see where we are after we've dropped all the guidance. So. But we know how to put guidance back in, and it's not like it was May of 2020, right? So
You're old hat at this now.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said you're old hat at this now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to move on because my timekeeper says we're running a little late.
Hang behind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
For all
Scott.
your hard
Appreciate
work,
it.
and boy, it sure is nice to be where we are today,
On the other side.
so to speak, so far.
Scott, I know it's your time. I'm sorry, we still have one agenda item that we haven't resolved yet. Chief is going to give us a brief update on fire department status report.
Thank you.
But he's pretty succinct, so don't worry.
Yes.
And he gave us a nice written report that was very thorough, so I appreciate that.
Sure. I was just at the road race planning meeting, so very active in it, and just, just to think about it, it's in 5 weeks. So it's fast and furious, so. Anyways, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to, provide the update. I'll just follow along with the written update that I provided you. The areas that I wanted to give you the updates are, the updates on are some of the more important things that, have been brought to the board in the past. The first being the staffing. As you note in my report, we have had of recent weeks, we've had better response from our personnel to take overtime in the West Falmouth station. So that's been very helpful for, for continuing coverage. Call volume for that particular district remains unchanged. We still see about 1 call per day in that district. It's not to say that when the station's staffed, it doesn't respond to other areas, which it does, but West Falmouth and Woods Hole are just low call volume.
But they get a quick response.
What's that?
But they get a quick response.
Oh, yeah. Staffing in West Falmouth, again, we have had challenges in the past, particularly in April and June. We did see at that point of time in our fire department increased time off requests, also injury leave and military leave had impacted our department. And also of late with our recent recruit graduates, we've been able to get them through our department training and eventually through our orientation and to the point where the duty officers and training officers were comfortable with them, we added them to our shift strength. So with personnel coming back, decreased time off, and the recruits finally becoming part of the shift, we've been able to kind of, continue to bolster our shift. So right now, where we have a 14-man minimum, we've been able to kind of have a level off at 15 per shift, and we have 2 additional recruits that are going to becoming shift strength soon, probably within the next week or so. And when that happens, and I also have one personnel that's coming back from military leave, so again, that'll kind of, cushion the shifts. We have an additional 6 personnel that are going to be attending the fire academy, in July 26th is going to be their start date. It's a 10-week program, as I've noted, and following them upon their successful graduation, that in October we'll have a second 6 employees that we've hired or offered employment to that are going to be going through recruit training. So again, 10 weeks out from them, and we're hoping at least by the first of the year or thereafter, those 12 personnel will also be part of our shift strength in the department. That'll then bring us up to that level that we've discussed, which is having 18 personnel per shift. As I've stated in the past that we have a level of 19, 18, 19, 18, but we have 2 personnel that are on long-term injury leave, so we're going to just be able to maintain 18 across the board. So between the recent recruit graduates and the hiring process, I think over the last year, we've made some significant strides in getting the override positions filled, the new positions filled, and the other positions that were vacant for other reasoning. And in my conversations with many other fire chiefs in the Commonwealth, I think that we have done quite a bit to make these vacancies a thing of the past. So, and we've done a lot better than other communities. I can pass that along. So I appreciate all the support and all the personnel in my department for making this work. It was a very long process. We also had some challenges with some of our applicants that did not meet muster, and we had to continue to look for applicants that could fill these positions, and we just kept on it, and we were able to get it done. So, I can report that things are looking up in that regard.
That is quite an accomplishment, actually, to be able to hire this many people during this past year, so thank you for that.
Yes.
And it seems to me that the, sort of the timetable that, or the timeline that you had set out, you've actually been able to meet the different milestones, which I think is just sort of reiterating what you just said. It's pretty amazing that you've been able to do that. But I just want to make public that you set out a timeline and you're meeting it.
Right.
And so I think it's important for people to know that in terms of your hiring.
I appreciate that, but again, it goes back to the staff, especially, our administrative assistant, Kim Strom. She is very fluid in trying to get this process going. We just continue to follow what our goal was starting last summer, and we just kept on it, and we kept moving and moving and moving and trying to make all these meetings and deadlines, and we kept on it. As soon as we got 6 hired, we were back at it with civil service. We had many phone calls with civil service to find out what our timelines were as far as receiving a new firefighter exam list. That was key also, because as everybody is aware, we come to the end of this list, and it's not like there's problems at the bottom of the list. It's just that the further down the list you go, the further out the people are. So we were looking at people from Haverhill, from Holyoke, from Lowell. We were looking way beyond our borders, and normally we have a little closer, and we have pool as far as residents that are living in the area. But getting this second this list finalized and be able to obtain it and start working off of it through civil service, we were able to get residents in one of our last lists. So the next list that we have is going to be Falmouth residents that are EMTs.
And just to speak to that just quickly for the public, because we had a long conversation about this, the reason why that's important, we saw when we kind of did an analysis of people who had left. A lot of folks go back to where they have roots. So they come here and they get training, and for whatever reason, either because that was always their objective to get their training here and travel, move on later on, or they get here and then family commitments bring them back. The vast majority of employees that had left after some period of time left to go back to the towns that they had originated in. So when you're talking about some place like Holyoke or Lowell, that's a significant. The reason we have to assess that is it, there's always a risk to the tax dollar, right? That we put all that. There's so much upfront money and time and resources that go into training a firefighter, and then to have them be here for a year or two and then go back to where their family and their roots are. So just so that the public understands, it's not as if, so I don't think sometimes people think that it matters, but it really does, because we've seen historically that people do return often back to where family obligations are.
And if I could.
Or where they can afford to live.
Or where they can afford to live.
That's what I was going to say. They might come here and give it a try and then realize that they just can't afford to live here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So all those factors being said, we're not the only town or municipality that's being affected by these challenges, and we look at all of those factors, and we continue to discuss the issues, and we're hoping that throughout this whole process that we're providing the support by providing the information. And in fact, we had some of the pending recruits that are going to the academy in the station today, and we've had them in regularly. They don't work yet for the town, but they've been in regularly. With the uniform, sizing and such, and outfitting them with gear, and providing them all the information that's necessary to bring them through the academy. There's an awful lot of administrative oversight and paperwork that's required, but they've been there, and they're very eager and very excited to work here. And we had the second group that's going in October meeting with us recently as well, and they're even more excited. Those are more of the residents in this area. So,
that sounds good.
Very, very hopeful and very, glad that we're able to continue to report that, we're making strides in our hiring process.
Chief, would you just speak to the new truck or the equipment piece?
Sure. So with regards to our equipment, as you know, as I've noted in the past, our mechanics are very active. They have quite a bit of equipment that has to be maintained and serviced throughout the department, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a large piece of apparatus or small vehicle. Our mechanics also service police cruisers on Thursdays, so they're very, very busy, and we have a very good program to provide maintenance in a regular schedule to try and make sure that our vehicles are all, are regularly serviced so that we're not running into issues, or we can foresee an issue. Obviously, unforeseen issues are things that come about, so, it's important that, we continue to upgrade our equipment. That being said, the current apparatus, the new apparatus that was approved at town meeting, we're in the final phases of our specification and design. We just met with the president of the fire apparatus vendor from Allegiance, came in. He takes the final information. We give him some of our concerns or what little changes we want to make. He goes back, says, yep, we can do this all. Then we'll develop our contract. We'll go back and we'll finalize it. We can bring it back to the town. And we're trying, right now, as probably everybody is aware, goods and services are rising. And in demand for equipment, especially for apparatus and stuff, for this question, they're very technically designed. So I guess there's a lot of issues with computer chips out there. So we're hearing that right now, that, things that we're looking at, we have to start worrying about. So we're trying to do this as diligently as we can. So we've been working over the last couple of months or so with our in-house committee, and we've been going all of our equipment. This, along with having the new ladder truck in service. So there's been a lot on the table for everybody that's involved in the apparatus side of, oversight in our department. So the new apparatus that we're looking at is, we're finalizing that, and we hope to get that ordered soon, which we want to get that done hopefully within the month. Any further out, we're understanding from the apparatus manufacturer that, normally costs go up after January 1st. They may be coming earlier. So we're trying to beat that deadline so that we're not having any issues. With regards to the used truck, that has been a very difficult search, and and I looked at all of my emails and my timelines, and we've been actively looking and working with vendors, dealers, online. We've spent a lot of time amongst ourselves at the station looking for a suitable piece of apparatus, used apparatus, that we have been tasked to look for. The inventory for the size of apparatus that needs to fit in the West Falmouth station is very difficult to come by. From all the discussions that I've had with different dealers across the region and such, and through our fire vendor as well, vehicles come very quickly and they go out as quick as they come in, just similar to homes lately. And but one thing that has been happening is that the vehicles that are coming in don't match the size that we need for that particular station. So the West Falmouth station, in the beginning of the year, we had the overhead door company that takes care of garage doors, and we were able to work with them to try and get as much room in height with the garage door as we could to try and see if there was any more space that we could apply to the front of the building so that we could get a piece of apparatus in there. The most we could get into what they call limits, which allows the door to go back, is the limits. We only got about 2 or 3 inches. That's it. That station won't accommodate any. If you wanted to quiz Peter about the building itself, he's here. You could do that later on.
I think we already explored that in the past when they lowered the floor, right?
Peter joined us, and we did a lot of work, but that's about the amount. So the overall height of a piece of apparatus that could fit in there is 9 feet 5 inches. That's it. But we really wouldn't want to put anything in there that's 9 feet 5 inches, because there's the backing the truck in. It's on a little bit of an angle, so we have to be careful when it's backing in, when it's coming into the door. So anything we get has to be below that.
But It seemed like you had identified one that was...
So, yes. So we found actually through a dealer in New England that we did find a truck that's currently being leased, and it's in New England, and we're trying to work with him to get all the information we can. Height-wise, it'll work with us. It's about 8 feet 4 inches. But again, we have to, get all the information from him and go see it. The truck is being leased right now, so it's not available for at least another 30 days or so. Again, one of the reasons why it's not available right now is because, from what we understand, apparatus deliveries are delayed. So that's why this truck isn't available right now. So this is the best prospect that we've had over the last several months. Our dealer has looked across the country for us. I talked to somebody in Oregon to see if we could get a truck that was available. We looked at a truck in Alabama, and we were going back and forth. But again, they're not that available because of the size. Right now, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, if the truck is worth the purchase, it's in good shape for us, and we can get it in a reasonable amount of time. I think that this is the best prospect that we've had. But just to point out one thing, though, the current engine that's been in that station and all our other apparatus has been mechanically, we've been in good shape of late.
Knock on wood.
Yep, we
Don't
haven't.
jinx ourselves.
Yeah, we hadn't had any apparatus that was taken out of service long term from November to May. In May, we had to take one of the trucks out of service because it had a little bad sensor on it, and it had to go to the dealer because it's a warranty issue, and we had to bring it up there. So we were able to, so we had to relocate the engine from West Falmouth. The good thing is that we continued to follow through with our contingency plan, and when we do have people that are available, the personnel, we assign them to North Falmouth, and we've had very good success in those time frames, and there's only been about 16 times since last January where we've had to relocate apparatus, and we've had a good success in getting personnel, either 15 or 16 personnel in the north. I think that's been a testament to the mechanics and keeping all the apparatus in good mechanical shape. So lastly, the station infrastructure, where, obviously this all ties into the same thing. We have 5 stations that we manage, and we're working very diligently with the DPW, with the facilities manager. Greg Endicott had a very, hefty load to be burdened with right off the bat. He came in here, but he's working very closely with us on all of our stations. Our East Falmouth station, we had some money that was provided from town meeting several years ago, and we've been trying to chip away at some work there. Woods Hole is a station where, we're identifying some things there. The East Falmouth also, heating and cooling has to be addressed in that station, and it's the last fire station that is currently fuel oil fed. So we're trying to work on getting that, gas, like all the other stations, make it a little more efficient. So we're working on many things. We just did an annual inspection, so we've identified everything, and then we'll review it with Greg, and we hope to be able to address priorities through and assist from facilities to make any repairs, and anything larger or long-term, we're going to have to, go to town meeting for additional funds. But right now, we are where we are.
Okay.
Yes?
I have a question. If you're able to get this new apparatus from the small one that will fit in West Falmouth Station, where will the current truck live? Will it stay there, or would you move it?
So right now, our plan is if we get this spare engine, it would be we would house it at the East Falmouth Station. It would be utilized to rove around, and rather than utilize that engine that's there right now. So the current engine that's there is in good working shape, and we can interchange the two because they both fit in the same station, but we don't have to be moving apparatus around like we are doing right now. So, and again, I go by what the mechanics are telling us, but right now, it's outfitted, it's there, we can keep it there, and we'll start to work on the other apparatus, and they'll be interchangeable, and, we can continue to work without having to be without a spare engine, so.
Thank you.
And I have one. Chief, this vehicle that you've targeted now that you're hoping to get, is that pretty much equipped? Will it come equipped?
No, it's not equipped, so hopefully with the, with the funds that were provided to us, I, have worked with, Deputy Thrasher has been helping extensively with this, and we're using the same costs and figures from our other apparatus outfitting. So we're fairly confident, and I believe we'll be able to do it. We'll be able to outfit it right off the bat. So we're already prepared. We've already got everything laid out. We just need to go. We need to, it's all space and size. It's a little different than the other apparatus that we have, but it's the same style of truck that we're used to by the manufacturers. So all of our fire trucks are Pierce apparatus. This is going to be a Pierce. So our dealer is nearby. So there's a lot of hopefuls with this, but we'll be able to outfit it fairly quickly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to read from the report. I know that you could provide it. It's helpful for people to know. In the first quarter of 2021, you had, for rescue incidents, 1,341 that were responded to, and for fire, 417. I think it's always helpful for the public to hear that.
Yes, and right now, we're, obviously in our busy season. June was very active. July is very active right now. Between June and July, we're answering on an average 26 calls a day. So, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to have 35. The other day, we had 42 calls in one day on a Tuesday. Go figure. But, we're back in business, and you see it out there. So it's been a very active summer on all fronts, EMS and fire and marine incidences as well. We're starting to see more boaters out there having.
At least lucky for us, we've had some rain, so maybe the brush fire is reduced a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if it sounds like no matter how much rain we get, we're still
low.
in the drought mode in this part of the state. But I agree. It's,
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you
Well,
very
thanks
much.
very much for
Thank
your
you.
report.
for your
Thanks
work.
very much. Good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Sorry for your wait.
Can we have there should be something loaded on the computer for my presentation. I only have 8 slides, and I don't want to do death by PowerPoint here.
Just while that's being loaded, I just wanted to note, people might have noticed if they looked at the agenda that this week we have times, sort of more specific times, and I think the goal, I think Doug has been working with Peter and Julian to try and give a little bit of a better sense, instead of having a broad category that says 7:45, but within that someone might start at 10, to break it down and give the public a sense of how long each issue is going to be slotted, or, allotted in terms of time. So I know it's not a perfect science. We're obviously gone past it a bit, but I think it will be more helpful.
I think one suggestion I would make, however, would be to, when you look at hearings or you look at certain things, to put down that we expect 15 minutes or we expect 10 minutes, or I think we need to give people more specific guidelines so that they know exactly how much time they have. And
So
I
add
don't
to
think
it.
I don't think this meets that.
Maybe we could add that to
All right,
it.
Scott, everybody else had all the time they want. You got 10 minutes.
I counted 15, but that's all right. It's only 8 slides, so I can't go too long there. So I think this is the first time I've been before this committee in 3 years, in the summertime at least, and some of you are new faces, so glad to see. It's the first time I've been in front of a lectern for a year and a half, too. So.
Did you actually say your name already?
Did I say my name? Scott Lindell. I'm chair of the Bikeways and Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee.
Thank you.
So these 3 questions were what I flashed 3 years ago. And basically asked these questions, and I'm going to sort of give you an update on the progress since then. So the questions were basically, how can we better improve bike ped safety and transportation in Falmouth? How can we make progress on a list of 21 safety issues that we identified in our 3-year-old bike plan at the time? And how can we access state and other funds for addressing these road safety and other improvements? So to answer question 1 and focus on recent progress, about a year and a half ago, the town adopted a complete streets policy. And that set in motion a bunch of processes, one of which we're in for the last 6 months, which is a prioritization plan of how to make streets more safe and adaptable for bike, pedestrian, public transportation, and the like. So the town has undergone a contract with the Cape Cod Commission and their transportation experts to help us prioritize this. Not just take the bike plan and say, oh, that's going to be our complete street stuff, but they've done extensive surveying of the community, as we tried to do in a lesser way. But now we're into our second poll now that's been distributed, and they were supposed to have the prioritization completed this summer, but I think it's going to extend into the fall. It's a very careful process. And then ultimately, the next stage is how do we fund some of the top-ranking prioritizations that have gone through this public vetting process. So that's good progress. So some of the bike plan issues. So now our bike plan is about 6 years old, and we've only completed one of the 21 safety recommendations. And that was basically reordering the traffic pattern in the parking lot that the Steamship Authority leases from the town at the end of the Shining Sea Bikeway. But we have one of our major and top priorities in this bike plan was Goodwill Crossing. And we're now at the final stages of that design. I think the state is about ready to accept it. And that was some good money spent, because we know that you're going to see this recurring theme. If we have engineered projects ready, then we're shovel ready. And there's likely to be a lot of infrastructure money, we hope, coming down the line. And we need to be ready to be competitive to apply for that. Another focus that the Bike Ped Committee is engaged in with the town is safe routes to school. We think this will sort of rise to the top of many of our complete streets priorities too, once the town and the Cape Cod Commission has reviewed that. We've engaged the superintendent of schools and some of the principals, Principal Bushy in particular, and the wellness committee at the schools. And one really, I think, key thing that's developing, and there's a lot of synergy between DPW and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee for this Kathy Lee Bates redesign, including Shiverick's Pond, connecting Mullen Hall and Lawrence School, and eventually right to the bike path. That will also help drive traffic, if you will, bike and pedestrian traffic from the Shining Sea Bikeway. So these are all very positive progressions that we're making. Where there's a gap, and I think which aptly explains why we've only made one of 21 recommendations realizable, is that we don't have the funding. You know, we can't put this unfunded mandate on the town or DPW and say, do these things. You know, put in a shared use path along Brick Hill Road or Thomas Landers. We need to be creative about some of this, but we also need to be, as I said, shovel ready with engineered plans. That's relatively little money compared to the actual capital construction. So where are some of the sources of funding? Well, once we've completed this prioritization plan with Cape Cod Commission, we'd be eligible for a complete street grant. That's up to $450,000 for a project that's designed and ready to go. There are deadlines, you know, each May and October for us to apply for that if we want. Last year, Mass DOT started this shared streets and space program. And those towns, you know, we weren't one of them, but those towns were ready with shovel-ready designs, got $21 million to implement these kind of projects. You know, there is the state Chapter 90 monies that we get every year for road maintenance. If we can incorporate a little bit of complete streets in that, if it fits, great. There's small money, but it's not insignificant from the State Safe Routes to School grants program. But I think kind of like what we ended up doing with the bikeway and trying to repair that every little bit every year, it's a bit like painting a bridge on the bikeway, right? You're finished mile 10 and a half and you're back to mile 1. But we need to probably appropriate something in the town budget. And of course, this is the right time of year to do that for the coming year. And talking to other resources in town, we think that about $200,000 would be a good way to get started. Most of that money in the early going will probably be directed toward the engineering plans. So we're ready for these initiatives. Eventually, we build up enough money to actually do a capital project. So that's one of our committee's recommendations, is the town take that on, probably in the capital budget of the DPW. So other highlights from this past year. We now have an automatic counter on the Shining Sea Bikeway, and 250,000 people passed that counter last year. You can see on this graph here, we had over 50,000 bicyclists and pedestrians on the bikeway in August of last year, and we expect this might even be a bigger summer given that we don't have a pandemic. So this is very promising. Surface improvements on the Shining Sea Bikeway have, as I said, have been improved year by year, and but there's some of the pavement that's 6 or 7 years old again is already beginning to show some root bumps and root cracks again. So as I say, it's kind of like painting a bridge. Exciting steps, I think, with this potential infrastructure initiative that the federal government is brewing. We're hoping, again, if we have the designs ready, the Shining Sea Bikeway extension will be part of that. We know that Representative, it's not Delahunt anymore, Keating is very much in the trenches there, fighting for the bridges and fighting for an extension to the Shining Sea Bikeway as well. And the VHB, the consultants to the town, have completed a preliminary design to take us from County Road to the Bourne border. We also renewed our bicycle-friendly community award. That comes around every 4 or 5 years. We were hoping to go for silver status, but we were relegated to bronze status as we had been. But they pointed out to a few improvements that we need to consider to get to that next level. One of them is developing engineering for shovel-ready projects, so we're in the pipeline. Bicycle education in our schools and among adults, developing programs for that. And dedicated staff that are responsible for bike ped transportation issues. We don't really have anybody in the town whose job is there wouldn't be a full-time job but in a town like this size, but just dedicated to those issues. The key person you go to. And this report card, I can circulate this if you want.
I think you did send it to us already.
Okay, good. I sent it to you, but I didn't know if you distributed it.
We all got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So finally, this is my next to last slide. The Bikeways Committee sort of came up with this broad vision of what we think the major systemic issues, how we could solve major systemic issues. These aren't unique to Falmouth. This is Cape-wide, and probably many towns in Massachusetts have this issue. We have this network right now of high vehicle transportation corridors and few alternatives for bicyclists or pedestrians to, certainly bicyclists, to access. And I know the town with Mass DOT is looking at Route 28 improvements. We'll hear some more about that tonight, I think. And having a separated bike path or multi-use path for pedestrians and cyclists would really facilitate the safe passage and give people choices for how they make their way across town. So we like to see more of these red and orange roads turn into the blue and green. And you'll see the majority of them are now red and orange. And so finally, just to reiterate, what are the complete streets benefits to communities? First and foremost, to improve safety, produce more active transportation that's better for people's health, fewer auto emissions, stronger economies. Think if we could draw more people off the bike path and into downtown, if we had actually a safe crossing and a safe multi-use path right into downtown, that would draw people in and spend more money. Reduce costs of transportation, provides choices, smarter growth. These are things that young people, young families who would want to move here are going to want. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think like the fast internet. We can get fast internet here and complete streets. I think you'll draw a lot of young people who no longer want to live in Boston or New York City and come live in our beautiful community. And that's how I'll conclude.
I think that's good. Any questions? Yes.
I have a couple questions. One is just a simple logistical one. Are there trackers somewhere on the bike path to monitor how many bikes and people are on the bike path, or?
There's basically a light activated thing, yes.
Are there multiple across the bike path?
There's only one right now, but we're in the process of considering buying a second one.
Okay, where's that one? I'm just curious.
The one right now is near the Steamships Authority parking lot. So
Okay.
It's pretty much smack in the middle.
Okay. And my other question was about the 200K that you estimated needed. Would that, this is probably a board question, would that have to go on a warrant article and then be voted at town meeting for that 200K?
Or it could go through the budget.
budget.
So it's, yes, it would be an article, but through, not a separate article, but in the budget.
Okay, it wouldn't
In
have to
the
be a separate
DPW budget is
Okay.
where it would likely live.
Okay,
And the
thank you.
Transportation Management Committee at their last meeting also was targeting $200,000 for the same Complete Streets thing. And I asked the chairman after the meeting, I said, did you guys actually vote that? Is that a request? And he said that they're going to come back to their next meeting with something more formal. I don't know what he has in mind. But so, could you clarify what is actually required of a committee when they want to make a request like that?
Well, we need to recommend that to the board.
Yep.
Report back to the board and so recommend.
So can we now consider that this is a recommendation, or do we need something in writing that's a voted?
Well, ideally, it's voted by the committee, by quorum of the committee, and then transmitted by the chair to select board members.
Okay.
Happy to be copied with that.
Okay, I think that was, there was the sense of the Transportation Management Committee at the last meeting, but I don't think they had it on for a vote. So that's what they're going to do, I guess, at the next meeting. Will that be still timely enough for the, considered for the budget?
For the annual budget, it would be, yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I guess if I could just chime in. So $200,000 for infrastructure improvements would normally be part of the capital planning process, not the operating budget.
Right.
Submissions were due
Ideally.
today, I believe, which, you know, isn't to say that we could not make an exception, but I guess I would just add that if a committee is seeking to initiate a capital request, that, you know, the more backup information, the better, because, you know, the Finance Committee, we know will ask for, okay, you want money, you know, what's it for? Give us a cost breakdown. How long is it going to last? What are the maintenance costs associated? You know, we have a form that we can provide. So I'd be happy to provide that form to Scott so that they could take a look at that for, you know, submission now or in future capital rounds.
Great.
And I think I would like to see that, or I voted to recommend it as well. So that's the kind of information I'd like to have as backup.
Sure.
Yeah, and just process, I mean, we'll look at the whole budget and then send it over to the finance committee. So we wouldn't look at, unless somebody brought it as a petitioner's article, we have had things like that happen.
Sure.
It's a messy and probably not usually the best way to do it, best practice, certainly not best practice, but it has happened. But we would review it and then send it over. And so I think a key thing for any committee to think about is, and this committee does this very well, is that the department that you think you're going to have this money live in should also really want it and be on board to advocate to finance committee. The last thing you would want is, you know, to try and force it into a budget where that department head says, more money is great, but I don't have whatever, the staff, or I can't carry out this particular thing. So I know that this committee and Peter have a regular dialogue, and so that, but just as a reminder to committees, that's a big, we've had that before where people think they're making, we've had it a lot of times with personnel, around personnel, where individuals try to make requests for personnel and department heads, particularly chief of police or the fire department, will say that it doesn't really fit in how we're doing things. So it's important to have that department on board and have those communications, so.
And just to further clarify, I want to make it clear, because I wasn't 100% certain, that there are very significant operation and maintenance dollars for bikeways existing in the Public Works annual operating budget. So I want to be clear that nobody misunderstands that they're not being operated and maintained to a reasonable extent. That can always be increased. But if what's being talked about is capital money, like for right-of-way acquisition and other major kinds of expenditures, those are very, very big numbers, and those would go into capital.
I think this is more of just to create a line item so that we say, if we have a new policy, we should have a line item for it, and even if it's only 200,000, that would just allow for like narrowing of lanes and restriping and, you know, when.
Well, that's operation and maintenance.
I think what Scott,
Striping.
I think what Scott was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think what Scott was talking about is specifically not really maintenance so much as engineering for projects coming forward. I think we do have a pretty substantial budget for maintenance, not that it can't be more, but again, I think DPW, I don't want to speak for Peter, is really at their maximum for what, I mean, you could put tons of money, but there's only so many days in the year, there's so many other projects. So I think what Scott is talking about is when you look at being shovel-ready for projects that grant money or other monies might flow to us if we have that done. I think that you were talking a little bit more about the engineering.
That's job one, and then obviously the project construction funds would come along later.
Yes.
Maybe
But when you're talking about
maybe
the
some of
200 is really the money to do some of the engineering.
Initially, yes. Yeah. But that line item might build up to 400,000 the following year, and you could actually do a project eventually.
Any other questions?
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us of where we're at.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, next is update on traffic improvements, Jones Road, Gifford Street intersection and Route 28 corridor from Falmouth Heights Road to Sandwich Road, Department of Public Works and Department of Public Works Director Peter McConaty.
Good evening. Good evening, Peter McConaty, Director of Public Works. I'm just going to get John set up here. Thank you for having us tonight, for letting us provide information on our transportation project. We have many transportation project initiatives basically in line right now. Several of the projects you'll hear from tonight with John. It's not the only projects that we do have going on right now, but it's three of the major projects that we do have going on. Route 28, Segment 2 is one of the sections that we're looking heavily into. Just to recollect that in the beginning, we had one large project that went from Main Street all the way out to T-Ticket. It was a large project with Meet Mass DOT. We broke it up to 3 segments. Now we're looking strictly at Segment 2. Segment 2 is turned into a large project with 3 major intersections, so that particular segment might be broken up further into an alternate A or a segment A, 2A, 2B, 2C with the intersections that you'll see tonight. But I'd just like to introduce John Diaz to speak on the projects, and just to also emphasize that this is it's a brief kind of like cram presentation to show the board, select board, and the audience what we're working on. But towards the end of the summer and the upcoming months, we're going to be looking at going to additional public meetings, what we have on our typical projects. So there'll be public meetings where the public will be able to come in and comment on each of the projects, typically as we work with the Mass DOT projects. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. John Diaz with GPI. It's actually nice to actually be somewhere in person.
Yeah.
Last time I saw you guys, you were all little dots on a screen last summer. As Peter said, excuse me, just a little weird. We have a couple projects to go through. The first one, we'll talk about the Route 28 corridor project, which, as Peter mentioned, goes from Falmouth Heights Road up to Sandwich Road. So this is, again, we're very hard to believe, but very early in the project for us to re-examine that section, look at different concepts. We're going through the development of concepts and looking at typical sections for there. Still working on some of the traffic analysis and the numbers. You know, with COVID, traffic numbers have been a little difficult to project, so we have to see what's out there for past counts and factor them up, and hopefully we get into a point where traffic operations are more normal, so you can go back to the typical going out and seeing what things actually look like. We completed an RSA road safety audit back in this spring. So for this section that we're looking at, this is really the concept that we'd like to incorporate. Mass DOT is looking at Route 28 throughout the Cape, and has come up with this general, desire, you would say, to have a cross section that looks similar to this. So On the west side, you'd have a 5-foot sidewalk, then you'd have a 5-foot shoulder, 11-foot travel lane. And then on the east side, you'd have an 11-foot travel lane, 5-foot shoulder, 5-foot or possibly bigger grass buffer, and then a 10-use shared use path. So you'd have that, as was being discussed earlier, you'd have that continuous shared use path on the east side of the road, sidewalk on the west side, and then wider shoulders as well along the roadway surface. And again, this is a section that hopefully will go the entire length of 28 through all the towns. So Falmouth Heights Road is the first intersection. Peter mentioned that there's really 3 intersections in this corridor. I'm sure you've seen past concepts of a roundabout there. That's really what we'd like to do. It seems like it's a good fit for the area, good opportunity to put a roundabout in. Obviously, we're still in the planning stages. There's several issues there, particularly, as I'm sure, I don't have to tell you, the Starbucks restaurant there and how the drive-through affects that. We will be going through Mass DOT and talking to them about the curb cuts, what they look like. With the Friendly's restaurant in kind of limbo, there may be some opportunities there. Whatever goes in there would have to go through Mass DOT for curb cut review. So there might be some opportunities to do some shared access with that if I'm sure the state would be willing to look at that. So again, that's just a quick concept of what we're looking at. Again, continuing to keep the bike and the ped accommodations through the roundabout. The second intersection is Dillingham Ave. Right now, it's unsignalized. As you know, one of the big one of the big issues there is that the 2 side streets are offset. So if you're trying to go across or even to make left turns or right turns out of there, it's a bit confusing. So we're looking at several concepts. We have some of them here. Again, very preliminary concepts. Nothing's final, but we're looking at a traffic signal there to see if it's warranted. Again, it's tough to do the traffic warrant analysis based on the numbers now. So again, we're looking at historical counts and seeing what warrants apply there. So just quickly, so the simplest one would be just to better align the 2 side streets, basically get them lined up opposite, so you eliminate that offset conclusion. So that's almost like the do nothing. That would be the minimum we would have to do there. The second option would be adding turn lanes on Route 28, so you have left turn lanes in both directions, or at least turning onto Dillingham. Again, we may have one in southbound and have them opposing, depends on right of way and what we need. So that would at least pull the left turn vehicles from 28 off of it. In addition, on Dillingham coming out, have a right turn, because that right turn is heavy, and that would improve traffic operations. Ideally, if we do meet the warrants for a signal and a signal is feasible there, this would probably be, a design that would go well with a signal.
But it could also be used without a signal.
You could also do it without a signal, yeah. This one was, and again, this is by no means final. This was just exploring ways of trying to look at some turn restrictions there, whether it's no left turns or limiting left turns off at 28 or left turns out of the side street. With the roundabout, if the roundabout goes to the south, that would be an opportunity to provide kind of an opportunity to go back and eliminate a left turn, particularly out at Dillingham. Jones Road connects down to Spring Bars. Can never get that. I always want to say Springdale for some reason. But Spring Bars Road. So there are some ways around there. Probably not very realistic a plan to move forward, but just to throw out concepts and to talk about it. Route 28 at Sandwich Road is the last of the major intersections in this segment that we're talking about. We're looking at some concepts there. Preliminary design would be something along these lines, where you're trying to tighten up the intersection, better define where a left turn lane on 28 onto it, and get a separate left and right turn lane out of Sandwich Road.
We pretty much have that there now without striping.
The issue now is the geometry of the road, especially Sandwich Road. You come on just straight,
And you can't see.
And you can't
Right.
see.
Mhm.
So this basically, it's like I say, it's essentially keeping it how it functions today, but just the geometry improves, so you get a better sight line and slow that movement down a bit. You know, we're considering a roundabout there to see what that would look like. It's nice in that it provides, from a safety and operational point of view, it would be the best option in terms of traffic calming and slowing people down into the corridor. With the 2 roundabouts in either end, you kind of frame that section of road as a little different and more consistent section between the two, but we do realize there's right-of-way impacts and costs involved with that. I think that's really where we are right now, that section of 28. So if you have any questions on that section before I jump to the next section.
Question, the Route 28 corridor between Falmouth Heights and Sandwich Road, the proposed section is 52 feet wide. I'm wondering, what is the average width right now?
Of the road or of the right-of-way?
Of the road and the right-of-way.
The right-of-way generally fits in this section. If you look, I thought I had one concept here. I don't know how well you can see it, but, so this is Falmouth Heights Road. This is the red line to the right-of-way. So that section is shown here with the 5-foot sidewalk, actually the 6-foot sidewalk and the travel lanes and the buffer. So you're fitting within the right-of-way for the most part.
Okay.
But the concept that we looked at through here, with the exception of, you know, a couple of places, you're generally within the right-of-way with that section.
Okay, so it wouldn't require.
No major takings, no.
Okay.
We're not talking like a 10-foot strip up the corridor type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
But different case at Sandwich Road, though?
I'm sorry?
Is it a different case at Sandwich Road as far as the roundabout?
Well, that was just the corridor segment, the cross-section. Sandwich Road, I mean, if, again, you know, if you were looking at a roundabout, this is right here is the right-of-way line there, right-of-way line there. On the school property, it's a little more. So again, not major impacts. I mean, you got a pretty significant right-of-way segment through there. So it's almost more like your typical intersection where you got to do the corner roundings, that type of taking.
The bigger one would probably be the Friendlies for the roundabout, because that's a little bit more narrow, right?
It is a little more narrow. It's actually not, surprisingly not that bad. Again, here's the right-of-way line, so I mean, the bump, you know, the round, you know, you get the diameter, you have some impacts. Up here, it's a little more significant, but you're not yet.
But you're not into their parking lot, yep, okay.
So, things don't look too bad from a right-of-way perspective. Any other questions on that segment?
Public? Yes. Come on
come up
up,
to
please. I'll make sure we can hear it at home.
Hi, I'm Mark Gaylord. I'm just curious about what the thinking is, if any, about impact upon utility poles. Is there thoughts of burying?
It's outside his.
There's always thoughts about burying. It's a very costly process. But one of the things that we'll be looking at is relocating utility poles as necessary, and whatever we need to do, whether it's raising them for the signalized intersections or keeping them in this case in the buffer strip, or depending if that doesn't work, to the back of the sidewalk. But utility design will be both overhead utilities, underground, the whole thing will be part of the overall design.
Anybody else? I got a question. So, Mr. McConerty was talking about that we might break this up into 2 sections, even yet. Would it be the Davis Straits first, or would that be later after we determine if it's getting rezoned?
I don't know, Pete, if you want to.
Yeah, the reason I made that comment is I think as you start to go through the design on this and you start looking at 3 intersections, either roundabouts or signalized intersections, the cost is going to be, if I was a betting man, and I sometimes do, I would say it's going to be higher than the original amount that we put in for the original project. So when we put this in under the TIP project for the JTC, I think that, you know, you got 15 towns looking for, you know, the $8 million that they get a year or what have you. So I think if we were able to design it as a whole but break it up individually, I think you'd be able to
Better chance to fund it.
better chance to put it on. So right now, it's on a 5-year plan. So if say this project goes forward, we get this up into design, and we get it thrown onto the TIP program, it would be 2026 to 2027 for this segment. So, and then it would be consecutive years after that. That's what Mashpee did. Mashpee's doing the multi-purpose lane from the roundabout down to the town line. They broke it up into 2 segments, so.
Do you see the rezoning that might be reconsidered here as any kind of concern or something you need to think about?
I think we'd like to, we've been working with the planning board on this, and would like to continue to work with that, because I think they both go together on this. I think the streetscape and the look of what they're looking to do in this area, along with this, this design, I think it's gonna fit well together.
Yeah.
And if it were to be rezoned to allow for more residential, does that help our project at all? Because it could potentially, these changes are even that much more important if you have the volume increasing, because we now are having more residents sort of in this area, and so some of these problems that we've noted are, presumably are going to be amplified to some extent.
You're gonna have additional vehicles, and you're gonna have additional pedestrian and bicycles, so it would affect the design. It probably would help out.
Okay.
And as John had mentioned, that they're looking at doing this across the Cape as a typical section, so, start in Falmouth.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? What's the timeline for these projects? Any idea?
Peter just went through the TIP process. For the design, I think what would be looking to do is, towards the end of the summer, have start the public informational meetings, and then go from there.
So a couple of years before we're actually ready to do any work, probably?
It's on, would you say the 26th or 7th?
I think it's on the 26th or 20, if we went on next year, it would be on the 26th or 27th. It's a 5-year. Yeah. It's a 5-year plan that they work off. Every year, some projects drop out.
Yeah.
Because they're not ready. It's usually acquisition or right away. But then other projects move up with their costs, so it's like a juggling act. But I think Falmouth would have a better shot if we looked at designing it as a whole, but breaking it up into individual segments that I think we could put it on, and then we could show the whole project as a whole. But individually, we're going for this first, this second, and see if you can do it in consecutive years. So if we designed it now, say if we get into design 25, 50, say we get onto the TIP for next year, you'd be looking at 26, 27, that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Just one quick question. To get on the TIP, can you remind us, how far are we 25, 50% designed to be able to really qualify or to?
Yeah, see, right now it's on segment 3 is on the footnotes of the, it's not on, it's on the footnotes of it. It has to still make it into the so, I mean, you could go with a 25% and start working at it from there. But usually what happens as the project goes along, the right-of-way kicks in and the acquisition kicks in, and it starts knocking the project backwards because the design is not ready as it moves forward.
Okay.
But we could get on it as, theoretically next year
Okay.
and start working from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much.
All right, just quickly, just to give you an update on the other projects. So, Gifford at Jones, we're moving forward with the final design of that. Obviously, we've completed the preliminary design, the conceptual plan, so we're moving that forward to final design. And then 151 at Sam Turner. Last summer, we were talking about a bunch of different alternatives there, if you remember, and we're moving forward with the signalized intersection. We're looking at revising possibly some of the lane use on 151 itself, just to reduce some of the costs and the construction impacts. But for the most part, we're just working with Peter and Jim to finalize a couple of details on it, and then we'll move forward with that to final design. And I think, that was it, so.
Do you envision that to be a standing green for 151 activated when the people?
The signal will be fully actuated, so it's vehicle responsive. So if there's no one pulling up to the side street, it should stay green on, if it's working.
Okay.
It should stay green on 151.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And one other timing question, would this project, since it's a little bit further along, do you anticipate this project kind of being ahead of what we're talking about for 28?
I think, I don't want to get too much into it, but I think what we're looking at is different. So on Route 28, we're looking to go through the tip. It's a
Yep.
much bigger project, it's a much bigger design, it's a lot more plans, it costs a lot more funding-wise. What we were anticipating in the last, when we started going through these designs for Gifford Street and for 151, is to go through the town for a town budget as a town meeting article, and then we would be able to put it through, on separate years. Just at the end of the summer, after Labor Day, we're going to be looking at doing the intersection improvements at Sandwich Road and 151, so you're going to see left-hand turn lanes go in there and some different paint striping. So that project's already gone out to bid, and it's been awarded, so after the summertime, we'll be looking at doing them improvements, so.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you.
Very
All
informative.
right, thank you.
Okay, sign variance request, promotional signage in excess of days permitted under section 184-30 of the sign code. John Wesley, United Methodist Church, pet stuff sale, rummage and yard sale, and vacation Bible school.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck to them with that. 8:45, vote committee reappointments, non-regulatory boards, incumbents with uncontested seats. Affirmative Action Committee, Lynn Rhodes.
I'd move a reappointment of, and I think she just came in, of Lynn Rhodes for a term ending 6/30/2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Lynn, for your willingness to carry on.
I wish I had caught you. I would have said, I don't think you're going to have trouble. I think it's a very friendly board. We know all the work you've done.
We certainly appreciate it.
And I'm thrilled that Lynn will remain on the board.
Yes.
Me too. Veterans Council Committee, Robert Foos, at-large position.
I would move a reappointment for a term ending 6/30/2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you to Mr. Foos for his service. Veterans Council Committee, Clarissa April, Joe Q. Veterans Coffee Break Incorporated representative.
I would move approval for a reappointment to a term ending 6/30/2022 for Ms. April.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And thanks also to Ms. April for her service. Interview and vote to appoint committee members, Cable Advisory Committee, Annie Pride. Hello, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Ann Pride, longtime Falmouth resident.
Nice to meet you. And can you tell us what is your interest in the Cable Advisory Committee, or any special skills that you may bring?
I'm a longtime Falmouth resident, and I am a longtime maker of bi-monthly calls to Comcast to get my bills down. I've helped my neighbors with this. More recently, I worked with Sean Murphy at the Boston Globe, and we successfully got everybody in New England a refund. I think it totaled something like $20.17 for the regional sports fee, because we were not seeing any regional sports during COVID. So you may have seen that article, and a not very flattering picture of me in the paper, but it worked.
Well, it sounds like you're the tenacious kind of person we might need.
I have very strong organizational skills. I have a desire to keep that monopoly in check, see maybe what funds we can get from them for various efforts in the town. I really don't know much about the purvey of the committee itself. I read about it in the paper, and I filled out an application. My background, I have 15 years in database development and about 15 years in construction management.
Okay.
I would move approval.
Second.
For a term, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask which term. Just-
Yes, I was gonna pick the longer term, because
Yes.
that's how we lock people in, for a term ending 6/30/2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, and thank you for your hard work for the town.
Absolutely.
This is much better than reading the Enterprise.
Okay, and for the interview and vote committee member for Cultural Council, Stacy Weisbach.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Come on up, please. Okay, can you tell us why you want to be on the Cultural Council Committee?
I am a relatively new resident of almost 3 years now, pre-COVID. So I didn't come just because I was running away from Boston. I relocated from DC 5 years ago looking for something bigger and better. I am a change consultant. I look for opportunities to evolve, grow, and give. And I saw the Cultural Council on Facebook because everybody in Falmouth does everything on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I thought there's a place who could really use my impact. They are immensely talented, but there is a disconnect between innovation, technology, and the people that they're trying to reach. And that's sort of my wheelhouse as a change consultant. I built my company 10 years ago on the idea that people, tech, and innovation do not need to live separately.
Okay.
And I really want to help them meet the goals and get it, like their Zoom invite has to start at 6:30 because no one knows how to change it for a
Right.
7 o'clock meeting. Simple things that I can help facilitate growth on, but then also really just make a difference in a town I absolutely love.
Great. Are we going to think of a nickname for people who came during COVID?
I call them fakers, but.
Oh, okay.
Well,
thank
they're
you.
taxpayers, so that's what I call them. And we thank them for paying taxes on sometimes their very expensive properties. So we love everyone. But I would move the approval of Stacy, is it Weisbach?
Weisbach.
Weisbach, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, for a period of, actually, does it not have the period? Oh, it's
2020,
6/30/24.
Oh, okay, sorry, 6/30/2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Welcome
very much.
aboard.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you both.
Okay, discuss potential request for $200,000 in construction engineering design for proposed Falmouth Net. And we have some Falmouth Net representatives here. Can you tell us why you want the money?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, I just noted that it's 9:15, so I think for the first time using times on our agenda, we're doing pretty good. I just wanted to make note.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you again for your time. My name is Art Gaylord. I'm a board member of Falmouth Net. And we put this request in front of the select board back in April, thinking that maybe it would be a potential use for some of the COVID money, COVID relief money, which was coming into the town. Since then, we've continued to pursue, all possible avenues to get funding. And I guess I'm happy to mention that Senator Moran put in a budget amendment as a request of $150,000. As of Friday, when they passed the budget, that was still in. So, barring a veto from the governor, we may have access to much of the funding that we need. Still, I would request that the town consider reserving, I don't know what the right word is, but reserving a potential budget article for town meeting should this money not come through at the last minute. And as we've mentioned before, this is very important. This is the next stage in the project. We did the feasibility study, which we've talked about, and this would be to do an engineering design, which would be to refine the cost estimates, the actual street plan for doing a network throughout the town, and basically would be the type of thing that we would need, under a number of circumstances, should the town decide to get heavily involved in the project and do a bonding effort, they would need this type of information to go forward to the voters. Should we apply for grants, like potentially with the federal infrastructure money coming down, this would be the type of information we would need. And should we go out and try to get private investors, again, they're going to want this type of information. So this is a critical next step for the project. And, I realize that this is a very complex project. It's one which is, the town has lots of other competing interests. I ask that you give it consideration because this is really something which will impact every citizen in the town. It's an effort which would have some immediate impact. We all know, we just heard from someone who wanted to be on the Cable Advisory Committee about why she wanted to be on it, because service is not adequate. We heard from the Scott from the Bike Committee about how bikes and networks are two things which can help the town. And we as in Falmouth Net, believe in this sincerely. It is something which, depending upon how it was funded, potentially has a short-term cost to the town, but it's also something that can be ultimately be a revenue stream to the town and provide money for some of the other projects that the town is looking to do. It's also, we've heard about issues with equity, digital equity, where people cannot afford to have internet even if it's available to them, and that would be something that we believe this project could address. And so I'll stop there. I would just hope that you would give this project ongoing consideration. Oh, one final thing is I would urge that we move forward as quickly as possible with the formation of a working group, because, like I said, many of these issues are quite complex, and it's hard to discuss in 5 minutes, 10-minute presentation, and it really is a thing where I would like to see, number of people in town government, different departments, be able to sit down and talk about these things, get correct information, and really come to a good understanding about what would be involved, if the town were to get involved. Or potentially, if the town were not to get involved, they still should want to know what would be happening in the town.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Are there any obstacles to us forming that working group?
Well, my suggestion is that if the board's agreeable, that we come back to you with a draft mission statement to guide how this proceeds, so that you have some demarcation of what the board intends, short-term and long-term.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be happy to do that and come back at your next meeting if you'd like.
That would be great.
Would you work together with the Falmouth Net Group?
We can certainly do that. We may need a little bit more time, depending on how many people you want involved prior to coming back to you.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure that their objectives are included in your considerations. So.
Happy to do that, yeah. I know we've gotten
I think if you just
quite a
at
few
least had
communications.
one representative, maybe Art could handle it. He's easy to work with.
Are you saying as opposed to Courtney, or what?
I'm just saying. I've just been interacting more with Art when he's been answering my questions and so forth. I'm just finding him very responsive, so.
I'm sure that
Courtney would be equally responsive as well.
He's got the implementation experience with Open Cape too, so it does make sense.
Right.
I'm sure that we could get back to you very quickly.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One relating to the working group. Would we have to, Mr. Suso, because I'm not going to do it, put together the mission statement and then at another meeting have people come and put in their applications? We couldn't do that all at once for timeliness?
Usually we vote the mission statement.
Okay.
And then with that mission statement goes out in the publishing, in the paper.
Okay.
For the positions. So
Okay.
usually that's how, so that way the applicants know they have the mission statement, they can read it and decide if that's their interest.
Okay, that makes sense. Wanted just figuring out if we can
Process.
streamline it, but okay. Second question is the 150 that you just mentioned that was
Yes.
hopefully not going to be vetoed by the governor. What's the timeline for that, potentially?
We don't know. We don't know precisely, except it would be in the fiscal budget for 2022. So it's in the current fiscal year. But exactly when the money would be allocated is to be determined.
And I don't know this, so I'll ask you if you might know. Is that in a bond bill or an actual budget?
It was actually in a budget. I mean, my fear had been that it would be in a bond bill, because I've seen those before, and
never see them.
you never see the money.
Right.
One comment, if I could, about the makeup of the committee is that, as you talked about it at the previous meeting and approved it, the committee makeup is really all town people, town department members, with the exception of one person from Finance Committee and one person from Falmouth.
That was a mistake on our part. We can't get a Finance Committee person because they have to stay focused on the finance only. They can't be involved in other groups.
They're prohibited,
Yeah.
which I should have known. because I was on them, but
So
they're-
I guess still, I would just wonder about the need to advertise for members, given the proposed makeup of the committee.
That's a good point.
Sure.
Okay, right.
Mhm.
And so about the money, I would still advocate for us to, I think at our retreat, we discussed this. We had it on as a discussion of, long-term objectives. And I think there was a sense of the board that town meeting was the appropriate venue rather than trying to push the envelope of using the ARPA money. And so, is that still the feeling of the board, or has there been any new thoughts?
Well, I'm curious, if the 150 ends up in the budget, would you still want the full 200 from the ARPA funds, or would you then ask for 50 to make a full 200, or could you make the 150 work?
We most likely could make the 50 work with, the 150.
The 150? Okay. So that was kind of why I was asking about timing, is if this did
Right.
go on town meeting, and let's say it got let's say it went on town meeting and the 200 was approved, and then we later find out there's also this 150, then kind of what do we do?
Well, that happens all the time when we go to town meeting, and often with capital projects, for instance, there's a certain budget which we think the construction is, and then we put in another layer for architecture and design, and then a contingency just in case market conditions change. So most of the time, stuff that we vote at town meeting is overfunded, and then whatever's not spent comes back, because we don't want to be underfunded.
Right, okay.
So,
Sorry.
process question. Would Falmouth Net, can they do a placeholder on the warrant for writing an article to put in for the 200,000? I guess what I'm saying is hedging their bets, whether the 150 comes through first or you go to town meeting first.
They'd really be better off bringing a petition article that can always be withdrawn.
That's what I thought. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that would be ideal.
And I think we had spoken at our retreat that we felt, well, I'll say I felt, and I thought it was the consensus when we were discussing it, that a vote of town meeting is a stronger message to potential investors or developers than it is the five of us saying have some ARPA funds. And I know that there's a time sensitive piece, and so it's the low hanging fruit in some ways, but at the end of the day, a project of this size will at some level go, and I know that we don't know, a developer could come in, but there will be pieces that will come out of an investment from the town, some level, and that will go through town meeting. And I think that having town meeting in on it from the beginning, and number one, being educated, because it is a complex piece, and, lots of folks don't watch these meetings, even town meeting members, so town meeting is a venue to really get a lot of education out, both to those members and to the public at large. So it just felt like that was an important, position to put in front of town meeting, educate them and get their support. That was just part of the conversation we had when we talked about it.
I actually would agree with that, and also Falmouth Net is making a major effort to educate the town as a whole. You've probably seen some of the ads that we've had in the newspaper, and we're making an effort to reach out to all town meeting members before town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So the advice Mr. Suso just gave was that he would think it would be most appropriate for Falmouth Net to do a petition article for the $200,000. Would you be comfortable with that?
I suspect so. I don't know exactly what's involved with doing a
It's
petition
not-
article, but.
Yeah, it's not overly
Gotta
difficult. We just need
hire
the
a team of
deadlines.
lawyers and,
No problem.
And-
Would it cost more than 200,000?
$199.
And town council will help you as well.
Right, and then certainly if you did that, we would consider whether we could endorse it, and I imagine we could, but I can't speak for the board, but.
And that would ultimately go to the finance committee for their, so it's another way, again, to start educating a broader audience.
May I ask another logistical
Yes.
question? Because I'm still learning about articles that are on the warrant. And are we as select board members allowed to, like if I personally wanted to work on this before it comes to the board as an actual petition, can I do that, or do I need to completely just say, you guys, good luck, and I'll vote on it when it comes to the board?
I think you could certainly help them as an individual. Is that a problem?
Well, it may place the other members of the board in a compromising position if one of their own members is personally involved in it. So I think it's just an appearance issue and be a comfort level for other members of the board.
But we work as liaisons with many of the committees, and we provide, we represent the citizens. So to me, obviously, as a citizen, if you think there's input that you could provide that would be worthwhile for the good of the community, that's your role.
I think you just disclose it. I mean,
Yeah, that's the other thing, is just disclose it.
And then if you get to a point where, maybe it's gone farther than you intended, you could get advice of town council, and you might have to recuse yourself from the vote if that's his determination.
Okay.
And I think getting the advice of town council ahead of time is the best way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President?
We promised I wouldn't speak, but I just want to reinforce, first of all, how grateful you guys are to listen to us. We're an awful pest, but more to the point, I think this working group is a critical element here. And I think the real mission of that group, in our minds, is to identify what role should the town play in this. Funding this feasibility study is really important. We'd love to have the town involved in it, but as Art said, we're opportunists. We're going to look for the funding wherever we can to expedite the process. We're very, very pleased that our state legislative delegation was able to secure this money. To me, that's a huge endorsement of what we're trying to do. And I see this as complementary to our efforts. And I say I mean the town and FalmouthNet. The town is going to have to be involved. They're going to have to consider what financial commitment, what organizational commitment, what personnel commitment. That's what this is what the working group has got to focus on. And that can be done while we're also doing the engineering study, the architectural plans for all of this. And they work together. We plan, if we get the state money, it'll come to us. We have also raised other money. We got 10 shares of Google stock from one of the two founders of Internet, who had a lot of faith in what we're doing. That's like $25,000. So that will go toward this to help fund this study if the state money comes through and the costs are higher. That's why we asked for $200,000 from the town, because we've gotten estimates that range all over the place. But we want to follow a process, just as if we were a town body. We're going to put this out to bid. We're going to write an RFP. And I may be speaking out of turn for my fellow board members. We'll want to try to involve folks from the town in this. We want this to be a collaborative process. And that's really important. And I know it's a big thing. There's a lot of money involved. And the town has a lot of priorities, as Art said. There's the need for affordable housing is critical. We've got problems with coastal resiliency, sewering, And you're fortunate to have a town administration that minds the fiscal store. We may disagree with you sometimes, but you fill an important role, and as a citizen, we should be happy about that. So, but we also want to work with you, because we think this is important. And we think that things like this can be done, it can be done by, as well as some of these other things, because we can get creative with the funding. That's where imagination and vision comes in, and that's where we use the expertise of this working group. Thank you.
Thank you. And another thing that we're going to have to take up if we want to pursue this is a better understanding of what a municipal light entity could be and how it might be helpful for us to consider formation of it, which just because we consider formation of that doesn't mean that we're going to take on the whole burden of being a utility service, but it could be a limited role, as I've been looking into it and talking with Art about it. So I think we need to educate ourselves on what it means to consider that. So maybe we'll have another forum on it, maybe get some sort of an expert opinion on what the different levels of involvement could be.
The working group could, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Well, there's at least one municipality in Massachusetts going down that road right now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we could reach out to them and learn from their experience.
Yep.
But they have no intention of managing, light poles and electric service.
Right.
They're using it as a legal vehicle to support the creation of a community broadband network.
Okay, well, we'll further that discussion at a future meeting soon.
Might I make a suggestion?
Please.
If Art and Courtney and the whole Falmouth Net Group wants to maybe send to Julian or Peter maybe a draft kind of sketch of what you think a mission statement might look like for the working group as just a starting point, just to kind of get the process going, that might be helpful to just move it along.
We'll be happy to watch for that.
Sure, I can do that. The elements of that are in the proposal for the working group that I sent around a while ago, which had a brief introductory paragraph, and then at the end had about a half a dozen things that I thought might be primary topics to talk about. And so, at least from my perspective, I would think that that was a good beginning of a mission statement.
Good point. It was in there.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, just a respectful caution for the board. As you know, you've designated a number of priorities. We have staff heavily working on those priorities, and some of them were mentioned at the retreat, some of them this evening. And it behooves us to be cautious about committing large numbers of staff people to an additional initiative without removing them from other things that you already have them working on. So I just pass that along as a caution that we need to be deliberative and disciplined in terms of assignments for significant work internally. So happy to do it all. This board needs to set the priorities for us, and if we need to remove something and replace it with another thing, we can do that as well. So just bring that up as a respectful reminder.
If we're at the, sort of at the limit of workload right now, what would we first consider removing? Is there something?
Well, I'd like to talk about that on another night. I'm not prepared to, but some of what you hear, you probably won't be happy to hear.
Okay. We need more
Because you've
staff.
already, the reason we're working on them is you've already set those priorities.
Yeah.
So, and then the reason we're working is that you voted and given us directive to proceed, so.
I think it's important that we hear if we have a manpower shortage to support something like that we know about it, but also that we project out, is this an ongoing need? So that maybe we need to take a look at adequate staffing. So I don't want to hear, no, don't go forward. Let's look at it. Let's look at the staffing requirements that you're already telling us, warning us about, and let's say, what's the need in the foreseeable future? Because this isn't going to be the only issue. So I don't want to just absolutely stop because staff can't take anything else on. I want to know what's required for staff to be able to handle these kinds of issues if we're up against the barrier that means we can't take anything else on in the interest of the town.
Well, I don't want to suggest that staff is not incredibly busy already. They are.
I know that.
From A to Z, and we can always hire additional staff capacity, subject to the limitations of the budget, of course. But I just want to make certain that this board has made the determination of how you assess relative priorities. Because I want to make certain that I have my colleagues on the staff working on the things that you are expecting to have accomplished, and you have it as the highest priority. We had some discussion of that the other night, and talking about 3 to 5 top issues and where they relatively fall. And if that priority is going to change, I want to be certain that we react to that. And
Well, I was thinking that was more of like a large financial commitment discussion, like we were talking about Falmouth Net versus affordable housing, coastal resiliency, and, those large
It is, but those translate to staff time. We have to have staff members oversee those major areas to be certain that they're done effectively and in a quality way, whether it's a construction project, a planning project, an engineering design project, and we'll find a way to get it done. I just want to make certain that the board is clear that the direction we're taking and in which we're moving is what you want us to do.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking, like, right now, those large initiatives are kind of not really in the working stage. The Coastal Resiliency Committee is just finalizing their report. We haven't really directed any action from that. And the affordable housing, there's a lot of initiatives going on, but I don't think there's really, is there a lot of staff?
Well, I didn't just mention those two exclusively. I mean, we have a fire station we're about to design.
Right.
The board has also asked me to work with the fire chief in looking at potential sites for a northwest station. You voted that direction as well.
Right.
And that all involves, staff time and for us to be able to respond reasonably. And I just bring that up, again, not to divert the board's attention or resolve for these other projects, but just to remind you that adding things to the plate, we have to be reasonably cautious as professionals because we want to deliver them and we don't want to do them in the proper way that you expect. And so welcome that dialogue with you in whatever direction you determine.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
But we're also relying on you to come back and say, we really need to expand staff to cover these kinds of tasks. And so we want to hear that from you so that we're not limiting the kinds of programs that we'd like to see move forward in the town. So, and we understand that there's an operating budget impact, but we'd like to hear that so we can say, that's important enough. Please try to put that in the budget. We have to sell it to the finance committee and to town meeting, excuse me.
Happy to do it, just so we understand that you can't go through that transformation in a matter of weeks or even months. We're talking realistically some time, and happy to do it.
Except, I guess I would say that I think one of the biggest challenges we have right now, just in this moment, is that we have unfilled positions, and we did talk about this at the retreat. People who actually could be the exact folks, an assistant town planner, assistant deputy, of public works. Those, to me, are the people that would be very well suited to be on a working group like this, and those positions aren't filled. So what I think would be a helpful discussion, we started to touch on it when we met at the strategic planning, is for you to come back and let's dive deeper into what we talked about. Are we on the right pay scale? And I know we're getting slightly off topic, but it's connected. Are we on the right pay scale? What else can we do to fill these positions? Because I think that I agree, staff right now is pushed to its maximum, but part of it is because the assistant level in many of these really pivotal departments some of those assistant level positions remain unfilled. And it really does put an enormous pressure on the rest of the department. So, I would like to see us having a conversation a little bit more around the staffing piece and what we can do, whether it is something about going to town meeting and talking about stepping it up, pay grade or whatever it might be, readjusting, so that we can get those positions filled. Because to me, the better solution is let's get the staffing that's unfilled filled with competent and energetic and new individuals versus even necessarily creating new positions, because we don't need to necessarily create new positions if we can't fill some of the ones we have.
Just to clarify, assistant town planner began today.
Yes.
After going through a long and arduous process. We're thankful that we had that individual.
Actually came in through the door and sat down at the desk,
actually came in.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
So that's.
your point's well made, Doug, because
good.
we went through,
We
a
fired
lot of
him.
hoops to get there.
Right.
But our advertising and search for a deputy public works director position is also underway, so.
So I think if you could come back to just, to Sam's point, give us an assessment of where there are places that we either might kind of encourage policy or whatever else it might be to support staff so that we can take on some. I know we can't take on every initiative at 100% all the time. That's not going to be possible because we're also doing everything that takes place to run a town on a daily basis. But I think it's helpful for us to understand that, because it allows us to create, if we have a deeper understanding, it then allows us to create policy around priorities. Because otherwise, we're just saying, oh, this is very important and needed, and this is very important and needed. But if we know this particular department is really maxed out because of these whatever issues, I think it helps us have a more effective policy when we set it.
Were you waiting to say?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I absolutely agree with everything she just said.
I thought I saw your hand.
Oh, nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and from a skeptic standpoint, something I always have to do is I ask myself, all right, are you budgeting people but never hiring them? And so what happens to that money? Free cash into the capital budget, when we should be investing in people and resources to get some of these things done. So there's that element in the back of my mind and say, is this a game that staff is playing to keep that AAA bond rating? But
You're not serious.
I'm
Select Board Member Patterson, you can't be serious. I'm sorry, but
okay,
all the work that personnel goes to, we went through 7 candidates to finally hire an assistant town planner. Extraordinarily difficult. We had people sign contracts to arrive and walked away from them. We're involved in the deputy position. I apologize, but personnel does an extraordinary job. We work with all our departments, and I assure you, we want all these positions filled because it doubles up the workload on our other existing staff. We had equally challenging issues with our water superintendent and positions in wastewater. And I assure you, it's not in any way in our interest to delay hiring. We spend huge volumes of time on it. I apologize, but I just felt I needed to interject that.
Yeah. No,
And I think the idea that people are playing games is offensive to me. I think
Well,
it's out of line.
I hear it from citizens, so.
But I think part of the way that we can address it is if we do from time to time have some updates, because I think we don't know until maybe an offer is made. And I think it's helpful to understand, like when we heard that we had, what did we have, 11, we just talked about the number, we had 11, for the project manager.
Owner's project.
Yes, that we had, I mean, I think those kind of things, quick little updates when you do your report, it's kind of helpful for people to understand where we're getting, some real movement and other places where we're not. And again, then this board can delve into, so that assistant town planner that was so long. And so it's really wonderful that is filled. But when things go on that long, do we need to hear about it and explain where we're at so that the public understands we've offered it and, we've gotten this far and people have walked out. So that might be helpful for the public to understand some of that.
And I've solicited that input and I've received it, but
Yeah.
generally, I guess the board's not quite aware of all the trials and tribulations for that one, trying to hire the assistant planner.
Took a long time.
Yeah.
So.
But there was a lot of almosts.
Yeah. So that's a really positive piece to have that happen.
And so maybe
Keep
also,
working it.
maybe we also should kind of take an agenda item just to kind of review all the things that we have been asking you to do and think about where we're at, because if we're just keep piling it on, then, maybe we got to think about that. But I think this is an important one, and it's not a big ask. It's just the beginning of a big ask. So
Understood.
hopefully we can work it out. Maybe we can review the list and see if there is something we need to deprioritize.
But that's also when you craft the mission statement, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, my back is to you. When you craft the mission statement, that's also how you narrow or structure how much time that working group is going to be required. If our mission statement is enormous and we're asking them to vet every possible iteration, that's going to be a huge undertaking. If we're asking them to kind of move the ball forward, 10 yards on this specific thing, so I think we have to be, sometimes we craft these mission statements and they are very broad. I think this is one where if we're very specific and it's oriented towards a very kind of tight, result, then it hopefully narrows down the time that staff has to put into it, so.
When we were at the retreat last week, one thing that I mentioned was it would be very helpful to have a Gantt chart or something that I mentioned about where we are with certain projects. And I know there's a whole lot of things going on, lots of balls in the air. So I guess a question would be, if we're asking Julie and Mr. Suso, to give us updates, what would we need to specify what updates are? Should we solicit from the public to send an email maybe a week before a meeting to say, what do you want updates on to be presented? I guess it just becomes a question of, because there's so many things that we are working on, what would be the priority for a report?
I think,
Well, it's things that we've already asked to work on.
but I think what Anjali's saying is, how do we, again, be more effective in our communications with Julian and proactive to say, can you give us a report on these 3 things this quarter or whatever, at this meeting? I mean, I think we have to be specific about, if it's a specific project, and we do get updates about certain things, but if there's something that has been out there and we haven't gotten an update, I think that and the way you would do it is you would send it to Doug. You can certainly ask constituents to tell you, and if you want to have an update, you'd send it to Doug and copy Julian and say, at the next meeting, can this go on the agenda?
And I think it's all about setting the agenda. I mean, we talked about form and function at our retreat as well, and it's about being, from my perspective, being more specific with the agenda, how we spend our time, and what the board needs to know.
So maybe we can,
I'd like, along that,
another Wednesday, can we maybe start having the Wednesday morning after the select board meeting as sort of a regular thing where we review future agendas, and
Wednesday morning?
is that a good one, or?
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I think
I'd
that
like
would
to-
be really good.
Yes.
I know when I was on the school committee, we got a list of open positions and sort of a status on the progression to fill those positions. And I think staffing is such a critical issue that that's not an unfair thing to provide on a regular basis. And that would take those questions out of me. It would allow me to respond to my citizens who ask these questions. So that kind of, transparent reporting on where we stand on these positions would be very helpful.
And maybe we could get an update from personnel.
Oh, we certainly could. It's just the first time I'd heard that, so it took me,
Yeah.
frankly, it shocked me a bit.
I think we never really get updates from Denise, and I actually think that would be kind of a nice, staffing is such, and personnel is such a key thing. It would be nice, to the extent, obviously, she has a lot of constraints because we're talking about personnel issues, but she can talk about positions, she can talk about, she's not gonna talk about specifics of contract negotiations, obviously, but she can remind us which contracts are settled and which remain open, so that this board and the public has it in advance. Usually they come to us to be looked at when it's finished, but it might be nice to get a quarterly update from Denise about staffing and personnel
And salaries.
those
And
types of
what's
things.
open and-
Okay, we're drifting off the agenda now.
Okay, but I think it's a really good discussion, because, again, I just feel like it's incumbent upon the board to ask for what they need.
Right.
And to be specific about that.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that we've done that as well.
I think I do that as an individual, because I'm always curious and I'm always pestering with questions, so I don't,
Right. I agree, and I think we all kind of do it as individuals, but I think
as a board, we should
those-
do it more effectively. You're right.
And bring it
on
to the
those
public.
Wednesdays, I think it
agree.
would be really helpful.
Okay. Individual select board members report. Are we, is there any final discussion on this 200,000? We've got this
No, I think we
pretty
got
much squared away. Thank you very much for coming.
So can I just summarize quickly that, A, they're going to look to a petitioner's article for November.
Stay with the 200.
You're going to track the money that may potentially be coming from the amendment that Senator Moran did, and I'm a little confused about whether that goes to to Falmouth Net or it's processed to the town, but we don't need to,
He said it
I
was
guess.
going to go right to
I
that.
heard Art say that, I think that was the first time I'd heard that, so I was curious
As it
about that.
was written in the amendment, it was specifically to Falmouth Net Incorporated.
Okay. So I think we have a plan moving forward. And then the third piece was the working group piece and trying to come up with that and create the mission statement. Is that?
Our suggestion, and I'm putting words in Art's mouth.
Use the mic, Courtney, please.
Would
Thank you.
be that Art draft up, as you requested, some points for the charter's focus, which I think is critical. It goes to what you've just talked about. My suggestion would be that he circulate that to Julian and Peter and the select board as soon as he gets it put together, not wait for the next meeting, and then you guys can go to work on it, or whoever's writing it,
That would be helpful.
Great.
you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
even though it was kind of.
Because we want to see this thing move forward,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Okay, that makes it a little easier.
Thank you guys for your patience, and
And thanks for your patience.
hopefully we'll end up somewhere. There've been 900 of these that have been successful.
Okay,
So, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel.
okay, thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, so now we'll do individual select board members' reports. Anybody have any, yes?
Well, there's nobody there.
There are up there.
They're on.
I will report that last Wednesday, I think it was, there was a new display at the Woods Hole Library and another one at the Woods Hole Historical Museum about Jewel Plummer Cobb. And you may recall that the name of Agassiz Road in Woods Hole was changed to named
Right.
after her. And so it was a very nice reception. Ruth Gaynor and Paula Pace have done a wonderful job getting the community around that. There will be another event on July 29th that I'll bring up. I didn't want to get too ahead if people would forget. But I will bring that up at the next select board meeting, another event in honor of Jewel Plummer Cobb and her additions to our community, because she made a lot of contributions in the scientific community, which is part of our community.
Excellent.
I just have a quick update on the affirmative action diversity officer. We're moving forward on our second round of interviews on July 20th. So I just want you to know that that is moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to fill that position soon.
How many candidates do you have now?
I believe we are down to the last 3. They've already done one round of interviews, and this will be the second round.
Wonderful.
And I just want to report, as I mentioned earlier, I attended the Transportation Management Committee, and they are also in favor of the $200,000 for the complete streets, and they're going to bring a formal request. Also, I spoke with the chair of the planning board, who was reminding me that their meeting was in the newspaper, so you all saw it. They're meeting tomorrow night to discuss potential rezoning in business districts for affordable housing. So I plan to attend that, as I'm the liaison anyway. And that's it
Yay,
for me.
affordable housing.
Pardon me?
I said, yay, affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully changes happen.
And gentlemen, anything from you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, we're waiting confirmation from Joint Base Cape Cod regarding the potential public meeting date. We've polled the board and have a sense of what the best date is toward the end of the month, and as soon as we have that confirmed, we'll begin advertising. If JBCC cannot make that date, we'll be getting back to the board and looking at the month of August at this point, so.
And although they haven't had a chance to respond, we've tentatively offered the 29th of July. Okay.
Also, I want to thank the board for the excellent discussion and guidance provided by you at your annual strategic plan retreat last Wednesday evening. Thank you for that. And your next regular select board meeting will be Monday, July 26th. Thank you.
Very good. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.